All right, one last look at your traffic and weather on your ride in on this Friday morning. The Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center. Only a couple of accidents to report. One North Lake Drive near Irmo Drive, one at Two Notch and South Lake, another one at Park Street and Laurel, and then one at I-20 and 277. Today, high of 82 is pop-up showers going to be persistent throughout the day. Same forecast for tomorrow and Sunday as well. It's your traffic and weather. Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the early game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Friday morning. Welcome in. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri joining me on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines as we get things rolling for your weekend ahead. And Jack, who is not in studio, and join me on the phone lines because we're getting ready for another day of practice observation or camp observation, however you want to phrase it. As, again, it's been, Saturday, I guess, last time you guys were out there, right?
Yeah, it's been a few days since we've been out here. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, this is, I think, the 6th team practice now. So by the time we get out there, obviously they're going to be, we're only there for 3 periods today.
Sure.
But they should be in, they're going to be in some pads. I'm just not sure if it's uppers by this point. Like, they've probably already done uppers. But I wonder if they're going to be in full pads today. So that would be, pretty different to see compared to just seeing them in shells last week.
Does that give you any hope that you might see something different than last week other than stretches and special teams drills?
Look, man, I love the access that South Carolina gives us. They do a nice job, but, 3 periods is 3 periods. And if they're not stretching by the time we get out there, maybe we'll see a little bit more. But if they are stretching by the time we get in there, that's going to be, it's probably going to take them about 5 to 10 minutes of what we see. So hopefully we do see something, though.
We'll take whatever we can get. We will talk about what's happened in the first week at camp, as well as look ahead to the first scrimmage coming up, as well as we first got to hit our 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all 9s.
It is time for a 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. Again, we are right at a week into camp so far. Jack and all the media people have been able to get out and see the first 2 days of camp. Today will be day number 3. And again, it's been all the kind of the same stuff when it comes to watching special teams drills, who's returning kicks, who's returning punts, and all those kind of things. Everything else is just kind of whatever information you can get from the inside. And what have, if anything, we learned through this first week of camp, Jack?
Honestly, I think the fact that some of these groups are definitely impressing. I think the linebackers, more specifically, are the group that I know on Gamecock Central we've heard about them being a group that, they have to replace a lot of guys. You have to replace. I was doing a story on it for today, doing some research, replacing over 1,600 snaps between Bam Martin-Scott, Debo Williams, and Demetrius Knight from last season. That's a lot, but this is a group that they feel pretty good about, and so does South Carolina, apparently. So that would be one thing. And then, hopefully as we get out here today, we're going to be able to see a little bit more, hopefully, compared to last week now that they're in pads. But that's really the main thing that I could take away from this, and that's, I think that's a pretty good sign considering that's a really big position that South Carolina has to fill.
Yeah, I liked what I heard this week from guys like, J.R. Johnson, particularly when talking about that linebacker room. And again, they're all going to say positive things right now. Nobody's saying, oh, I think we're going to suck, or I think this area of the team is going to struggle. So you do take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. But when you combine what we're hearing with the hype around a lot of these guys like J.R. Johnson that we've heard since his time being on campus here, you put your hope in saying, okay, this is where it hopefully all comes together and everything clicks for, again, replacing one of the best units on this entire team from a year ago. I'll go over the offensive side of things. And again, we heard from Boaz Stanley earlier on this week too. I like the positive things I heard from him, not just from the standpoint of, hey, we're working good on the offensive line, but it seems like, everybody in that room is good with each other. I know he was talking about them hanging out outside of practice and those kind of things, which again may seem silly, but especially for a unit like the offensive line that we talk so much about, moving is one and needing that continuity, which is something you didn't have 2 years ago. I love hearing of those kind of things about an offensive line because any kind of positives in that direction is good.
There's no complacency either on the offensive line from Boaz's standpoint. Like, I asked him the other day, Shane obviously mentioned at the end of the spring, like, hey, if you'd probably say Boaz Stanley would be our starting center coming out of the spring. And so I asked him about that, like how you kind of handle that, not trying to get complacent as you get into the season here, knowing that, hey, you still have to go out here and earn the job. And then he brings up the fact that, Lonnie Teasley has not allowed, any of them to get complacent, and it's just a battle on the offensive line. They're going to put the best 5 players out there, regardless of maybe like Boaz Stanley is doing well at center right now, but maybe they need him at tackle. It's just one of those things.
Sure.
I don't think that's going to be the case. He's going to be the starting center for this team, but it's just an example of like, hey, like everyone's competing, and this is a group that I think they were fine last year, could be a bit better this season. They're going to have some new guys on that line, and we'll see who ends up becoming the starting 5 by week 1.
Well, I think if nothing else, you look at 2 guys on that offensive line room with Tree and Tro that are competing for respective guard spots on either side of Boaz. And I think they're the perfect example of not getting complacent with anything, because those are 2 guys that were thrust into the fire in their true freshman seasons back in 2023 because of all the injuries. And again, when you have guys that go out there and play as true freshmen, you kind of naturally assume, okay, these guys are going to be your inline starters for the next year, and that didn't happen. I mean, those guys didn't really play a whole lot last year. So I think that's a perfect example of somebody like Boaz coming in here and saying, hey, nothing's guaranteed here, even for guys that did maybe come in and impress early on as in their time as freshmen, that I have to stay, committed and stay doing my best, or else I could slip back here.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, those are the perfect example of guys that, come in right away, do their thing, play a lot as freshmen. I mean, they were thrown into the fire. And a lot of that had to do with injuries, right? And then last year, the offensive line, for my memory, stayed completely healthy, which was a really good sign. I mean, like, everyone was healthy last season. And that allowed for continuity as the year went along, when you have the same 5 guys starting every single game, and they're getting better and better and better. Now, the downside of that is not everyone's going to play, right? And you look at 2 guys, like we mentioned, Tree and Tro, who really did not get to play a ton because everyone was healthy on the line. They just didn't earn the starting jobs out of camp. So, you hope this year you're able to get both those guys in there a little bit more. I don't know if it'd be like rotational or even, honestly, just starting. That's what you really hope, because if you're able to have those guys out there on your line as starters, you feel pretty good, I think, because honestly, those are 2 solid players.
Yeah, and as we kind of transition into talking about the scrimmage, which is coming up tomorrow, the first one of this camp period, and they'll have them, a couple times before the season obviously gets started, mainly on those Saturdays. I look at, Boaz Stanley and his relationship with Lenore Sellers, and the fact that, again, they're working together every single day in practice, but you're getting into these real game scenarios where it's being treated like every Saturday is going to be when the season starts here in a couple weeks, that I feel like, the scrimmage is vitally important for those guys to continue to build that trust between each other, because the relationship with a quarterback and a center, can go a long way in determining how your season goes.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Boaz was talking about it the other day, the chemistry on the line. And I did ask him, what is the toughest part of being a center, because you're essentially the captain of the offense. And if something goes wrong, a lot of it has to do with it's on you, typically. Whether it is or isn't, the blame typically falls on the quarterback and the center for the lack of communication. And that's the thing. You have to be able to communicate on the offensive line. That's the main thing he was saying to us, is that if you don't have communication, things are going to go wrong. And so you have to have that good chemistry. You have to have it with Lenoris. You have to have it with the four other guys on the line. And you have to be a really cohesive unit. And especially in these environments where in scrimmages and stuff, there will probably be a couple people there. Like, I'm sure Gamecock Club members will be there and stuff. No media, no fans and stuff. So it won't be a real legit atmosphere for these guys going into the scrimmage. But, like, come regular season, when they're playing in front of 80, 85,000 people, 100,000 people, it's going to be loud. And that's the thing he mentioned, is that you have to be able to control the noise and be able to communicate with these guys when the pressure's on. So that's the big thing I'm looking forward to seeing or hearing this week, with how that goes in terms of communication and no hiccups on the offensive line.
Well, and while you may not be able to necessarily simulate the atmosphere, and I'm sure there'll be piping and noise and all that kind of stuff to do their best job of, getting you set for what it's going to be like playing in Tiger Stadium and 100,000 people here coming up in a couple months. But more importantly than anything else, you're on your own at that point, right? Like, these scrimmages are treated like true games where, in practice, you have that coach that sees you line up wrong and he'll stop things, say, hey, position this, do this, do this, do this. Where in a game, it's like, or a scrimmage, it's like, okay, this is being treated like a real game. As a coach, I can't run out there on the field and tell you to get set if I see something wrong. You're going to have to live with it on that play and suffer the consequences, and we'll rekindle or, reassess things after the play. So it's those kind of things. And again, when you had a veteran center like Vershawn Lee, who's able to help Lenore Sellers come along a season ago in his first year as a starter, I think, especially considering the fact that Boaz Stanley is coming up from the G5 ranks, I think a lot of it's going to be Lenore Sellers helping him come along and get prepared for what he's going to be seeing in SEC action this year.
Absolutely. I mean, like, Vershawn started 40 games here at South Carolina, and 18 of them were at center, and all 13 games last year were him under center, with Lenore Sellers. So that chemistry, it takes time to build, but, we're more than halfway through this year, and, Boaz has been here since January, so you hope by this point they're really in sync with each other, and obviously that's what these scrimmages are for. Yes, it's not going to be perfect. Yes, there are going to be mental mistakes and errors here and there, but that's why you have these scrimmages to kind of clean it up now. And it's unfortunate that there are no, there's no real preseason like the NFL does, where you play other teams, practice with those teams.
Sure.
I feel like these guys would really benefit from something like that, but you don't have that, and you're really working with what you got and just hoping it goes well.
Well, we don't have time to go on the rant of college football should have preseason games.
That could be for another segment later today.
Listen, we've talked about it plenty on these airwaves, and I'll die on the hill that there's no reason it should be the only sport that doesn't have that kind of stuff. But it is what it is, and we'll take the scrimmages for what they are. And again, you guys are going to obviously have to listen to your insiders and people that are in the know that tell you what happens tomorrow, and hopefully we get some good reports that we can talk about on Monday.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case, and hopefully everything goes well for the team on Saturday here.
Well, I'll let you run. I know you got to get out there and observe practice. You'll be back in here with me from noon until 3, and hopefully we'll have some good things to talk about there.
All right. I'll see you then, buddy. Take care.
All right. That is Jack Veltri heading out to the third observation period of camp for South Carolina. Again, he'll be back in here with me from noon to 3 for the halftime show. Wes and Chris will also be out there, and they'll tell us what's going down at 11 o'clock, as well as hopefully some good things that they can garner from whatever limited availability they get to see when it comes to stretching and special teams drills and all those kind of things. Our guy, Joe Machika, is going to hop in here with me for the next 2 hours, though. We're going to talk about Lenore Sellers and an article that Ari Wasserman of On3 wrote about him yesterday. Does he need to be Superman for South Carolina to succeed? We'll discuss that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head along with you here on your Friday on The Game. Tyler Ed here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. In case you hadn't noticed, school is back in session. If you're feeling misbehaved, you can stay back after class and enjoy some epic drink specials all week at the Back to School Costume Party. Back to School Costume Party is live in your lodge just down the street from us here in the Vista, August the 11th through 15th. That is next week. Come celebrate the end of summer break with the Naughty Schoolgirls over at Twin Peaks. And as football gets set to ramp up here in just a couple weeks, you know your ultimate destination each and every, not only weekend, but day as football is happening, is with our friends at Twin Peaks, with TVs as far as the eye can see, tons and tons of delicious food, and of course, you cannot forget about those 29-degree draft beers. All this with our friends at Twin Peaks down in the Vista. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head, Joe Machika, our super sub, filling in.
Absolutely. Got the call in from the bullpen again a little early this week. Tyler, excited to be here.
Well, now that we're in camp, I guess a lot of the media availabilities for camp are during the 9 o'clock hour. So, Jack does have that primary job that does take precedence. So he has to go out and observe some things, talk to him in that first segment there, and hopefully we'll get a good report. I mean, every camp report is good, right? Because I don't think they're going to let you see anything that's egregious or really concerns you. And really, it becomes about like, okay, who's out there, who's not, who's, not suited up, who's injured, whatever it may be. That's where I don't envy you guys as journalists, where you have to really dig for what you do actually get to see to craft your stories.
Yeah, Tyler, camp days it's when you're digging for storylines, finding something to talk about, really, because coaches are giving you the bare minimum. Nobody really wants to give you an update. And then, you ask them about the depth chart. We all kind of know how that goes.
Sure.
It's enough of a task for these coaches to try to assemble a depth chart. And, it's really one of the only things to kind of talk about in summer camp.
Well, as we learned back in the spring, don't create a depth chart when there isn't one, because you'll get on Coach Beamer's bad side really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't do that. And then, again, like your camp is to figure out who are your best guys, right?
Sure.
So obviously the depth chart's going to be something you focus on. But again, it's one of those things. Camp, it's guys just getting better and preparing for this upcoming season. There's really we don't necessarily know what the gaps are going to be in this team. We don't necessarily know what their strong suits are going to be either. Obviously, you can kind of play into that with preseason and stuff like that. But it's camp, Tyler. Like we really won't know anything till the rubber really hits the road.
Well, one thing we do know is that Lenore Sellers is special. Lenore Sellers is the focal point of this team. When everybody thinks of South Carolina, they think of Sellers, what he did last year, and as the catalyst for this team being successful this upcoming year. Ari Wasserman of On3 yesterday wrote an article that says, does Lenore Sellers have to be Superman for South Carolina to meet expectations? And this is based off Beamer saying, essentially, I believe this is from Media Days that he's referencing, like, hey, he doesn't have to go out there and do everything for this team to be successful. And Ari Wasserman, rightfully so, questions that, saying, I don't know if that's true based on what we don't know about the rest of this team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the wide receiver room has done a really good job of stepping up and really kind of turning the corner in terms of talent-wise. Mazio Bennett had a great year last year, but, in terms of that room, somebody's got to get him the ball, right? So
sure.
that will be 16. I think this running back room kind of depends. Obviously, if you have Faison, it really, really helps with depth because then you have two, kind of older, more elite, elder statesmen kind of at the top, and that's what you need in the SEC. And so I think the rest of this offensive line, too, you're looking for another big year out of them. But, yeah, I think, Ari's got a point to an extent, right? I think offensively it all stems from 16, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to find success, especially in the SEC, and especially the way that this schedule is kind of, in November and everything, like you've got a lot of tough road games in November that 16 is going to have to do some crazy things if you want to find success.
I think you kind of look at this as two ends of the spectrum. You have Superman, and then you have game manager, right?
Yep.
Game manager is a quarterback to me that just gets the ball to his playmakers, doesn't turn the ball over, just, very inoffensive, right? Like he does what he needs to do, goes out there, but he's not somebody that people look at and say, wow, that guy's a superstar necessarily. Sellers is on the other end of the spectrum. People look at him as a superstar. And again, those plays last year speak for themselves, and that's what's garnered him so much reputation and conversation this offseason when you talk about Heisman Trophy and first-round pick and all those kind of things. And it's all well-deserved. You hope that Sellers doesn't have to do all those things this upcoming year for South Carolina to be successful. But I do think, and this is kind of where I think Ari's coming from here, until proven otherwise, I think you have to assume that's going to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year's going to be big for the supporting crowd, right? Who's around Lenoris, and obviously last year we saw sparks. Like I brought up Mazio Bennett, Nicholas Harbor. This is going to be another big year for him to step up. And everything that we've heard out of camp and summer practice, it's going to be such year for those guys, right? So it'll be interesting to see. This defense has to make a lot of plays too. There's a lot of question marks surrounding them, and when you go into a season with question marks surrounding Clayton White's defense, these last couple of years, it's kind of been a 50-50 bag. Like he's proven people wrong, and at the same time, he's had some depth issues and injuries, and knock on wood around camp.
And I think the defense is where something like this, a national writer that covers the sport across the board creates their biggest point of skepticism. Because if you looked at last year's defense and what they did, again, one of the best in the SEC, and they returned all those guys that got drafted, you'd say, oh, defense is going to be fine. Even though you have questions at receiver and running back and offensive line or a tight end or whatever, the defense is going to be fine. Sellers is going to be fine. This team's going to be good. But the fact that you don't have that guarantee on the other side, and I think you look at a recent example with the LSU team 2 years ago where Jaden Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. He was slinging the ball all over the yard. They were putting up tons of yardage, tons of points, but the defense was giving up a lot too. And I think that's a classic example of you can have a superstar player at quarterback, but if the supporting cast around you isn't good enough, you can still underachieve considering what your goals were going into that year.
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. And you brought up that LSU defense. I don't think this South Carolina defense is going to be nearly as bad. I think,
God, I hope not.
Yeah, like you really hope not. This secondary is lights out and always has been really under Torian Gray. He's really excited about his group, and that's always a good thing. I mean, he's produced a lot of NFL talent, out of that room. Cam Smith, Darius Rush, Marcellus Dials making a camp, J.C. Horn, right? So you have a lot of guys out of Torian Gray's kind of reach, and so if he's excited about his room, I think your secondary is all shored up. I think, you're really kind of worried about linebacker, but then also Fred J.R. Johnson's been a guy that this coaching staff has been excited to get, excited to have, freakishly athletic, so that also should excite you. There's a lot of things to look at, but, I mean, I think the way that this secondary, again, is going to hold up for this defense should give you at least some kind of confidence in this defense.
So if I tell you that Sellers goes out there and has a Superman season this year, do you look at that like, oh, is that purely statistics? Is that those moments again from last year? Is that awards that he wins at the end of it? Is that, okay, if Carolina makes the college ball playoff, and I told you nothing else, are you just assuming that's because Sellers had a Superman season?
I mean, he's going to have to if you're going to make the college football playoff. That's just the nature of the SEC, right? I mean, it's, any given Saturday, it's the title of the dang series, right? So it really, he's going to have to do some crazy things. Now, I think if a true Superman, if you look at the ceiling of what this kid and, like, what we've seen already from him, like,
Sure.
You could have a Superman effort and be like 2-3, right? Like you could go 12-0, right, and be ranked in the top 5. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say making the playoffs would require a Superman effort. And then also, I think that's going to, if you're going to make the playoff, it's going to require some games where he's going to have to take a step back and not necessarily have the best statistical game. Like have those leader kind of Superman games, right? Yeah. Where, like you mentioned, the game manager. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I think he's capable of both. And, again, I think this team is, deeper than people are giving, shake to nationally.
Ideally, hey, again, Sellers had his turnover problems last year. He's potentially in a situation where he could have a bad game this year. And if he does have that bad game, let's say it's against an Ole Miss or something like that, hey, defense bails you out, your running game picks you up, everybody else around you does their job to where even if you're having an off night or off day, whatever, then you're still capable of winning or being competitive in that game, which, again, we just don't know right now. Right. We hope, we're optimistic, and we put faith in the coaching staff, from development and player evaluation with guys that got out of the portal. But until we see it, we're not going to have that comfort. So that's where you have to put a lot of that belief in Lenore Sellers. Again, going back to somebody like Wasserman saying, well, I don't know if he can be successful if he's not Superman, because you just don't know the answers around him yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Tyler. And again, 16, he's going to have to make some plays. Really going to have to make some plays. He's a Heisman favorite, or like in Heisman contention for a reason. And,
sure.
And also, I mean, we mentioned Arch Manning. Like he's headed to they're staying at Texas next year, right? That was already announced and everything. So also it brings up his draft stock question as well.
So again, people view South Carolina as a playoff contending team with a lot of that due to Lenore Sellers. If, let's say, Sellers went to the draft this past year after having the strong year that he had, and we were just looking at either Aaron Nolan or Cutter Woods being the starting quarterback, two guys that have never taken a snap in college, how differently is this team viewed? Are we saying, like, man, hope we make a bowl game type of thing? Is that something where you think people would still say, no, I think they can back up what they did a year ago?
Right, it's interesting because both those guys have, again, really high ceilings. We've seen, really good things out of, Aaron Nolan coming out of high school, right? Really highly touted recruit. And then Cutter Woods is another one of those guys, we've heard good things. And then also seen in the spring game, he's progressed. He's got, the build. I think it's sure, yeah, Tyler, I guess it's a step back because you can't really replace 16. It's hard to replace what Lenore Sellers is and what he's capable of. But granted, I think Aaron Nolan and Cutter Woods are very suitable backups and also have spent some time developing under Lenoris, too.
You mentioned Arch Manning. We'll get to what his grandpa did have to say about him yesterday and what that means for the future of Texas as well as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head, Joe Machika hanging out with me on this Friday here on The Game.
Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system. But did you know they also have great deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can help. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and also no credit check required. That's right. So if you are the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air, comfort you can trust.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Joe Machika with you on your Friday here on The Game. Reminder, 2 weeks from today, it's the Game's Summer Golf Classic over at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia. Tee time's at 9. Registration is at 7:30. We'll have the onion sausages for breakfast, a mimosa bar from Saki's Wine and Spirit, and Firehouse Subs for lunch. Going to be a great time. Prizes. The golf gun makes its return. You're going to want to be out there. You want to take part? Give Charwood a call at 803-755-2000. Register. Only $400 for a team. Give that number a call and press number 2 to sign up. We want to see you out there again 2 weeks from today at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia. We alluded to a moment ago. I don't know if it sent shockwaves through the college football world, but definitely in the midst of still talking season, became a pretty hot topic of conversation when Archie Manning, the grandfather of Arch, obviously the father of Eli, Peyton, and Cooper, said yesterday, talking to a Texas reporting outlet, that, yeah, he doesn't really see Arch Manning opting out of his final year and going to the NFL draft soon, where a lot of people project he could potentially be the number 1 overall pick. Of course, he's a favorite for the Heisman Trophy and all those kind of things. And, you know, it's one of those things in today's world of college football. It's like, well, why wouldn't somebody go ahead and go to the NFL? Like, if they seems like they're ready. But when I think about it being the Manning family, it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. Like, it's not normal for a college football quarterback for his grandfather to be making announcements or his uncles to be making announcements for him.
Sure.
But this is the nature of Arch Manning.
Which it isn't a formal announcement, right?
Right.
He is not saying with 100% guarantee, yes, Arch is coming back. He's just saying, I assume that's what's going to happen. Again, Arch has not spoke on this. I'm sure he's going to be asked about this the first time he's in front of a microphone, but he's basically saying, yeah, I just see it being a case where he comes back for another year, basically no matter what happens this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so far, the case with Arch Manning, I mean, I guess you look at it, anytime his family kind of talks, it's, it's true for him, at least, the whole sticking around for Ewers and denying the transfer rumors and, granted, small stuff like that. But, everything, with Arch leads me to believe that sticking around at Texas is probably more beneficial for his brand. And I guess the whole, getting eyeballs on him and staying and developing a whole brand, is more beneficial for Arch. And it's simply because he's got the last name, too.
Sure.
Like, it's going to get eyeballs. It's going to get endorsements and stuff like that. I think it's more of a brand and Texas thing, too.
So we looked this up yesterday, and Peyton famously came back for his last year at Tennessee. I believe it was the Jets that could have gotten him in the first round or as the number 1 overall pick the year prior. And I think it was like, hey, I don't want to play for the Jets. I'm going to come back for another year of school. And obviously he ended up going to the Colts, and the rest is history there. Eli played his entire time at Ole Miss. So you have a precedent with the family of, hey, we rode out our entire college careers. And I think when you look at that, again, an entire family of quarterbacks, save for, Arch's dad and Cooper there, where they understand development better than anyone, right? Like even Peyton Manning, remember, he would throw like 25, 30 interceptions his first year with the Colts. Like, he was not fully prepared for the NFL when he got there, and took time and obviously turned into one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But imagine what he would have been like if he hadn't played that extra year at Tennessee, his final year, senior year, that season, how much worse he could have been to start his career. So I think when your family is telling you, hey, get everything you can. You're with a phenomenal play caller in Steve Sarkisian. You've got a ton of talent around you on offense. Take advantage of that as much as you can before you potentially get shipped off to a place like the Saints, where you're going to be toiling in mediocrity for a while until they can build up the team around you.
Right, absolutely, Tyler. And it's hard in the NFL to make plays when you don't have a lot around you. I like that point, especially when your uncles, who went on to be two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, are telling you, take an extra year in college, it will help with the development. I love that point. Like, it's smart for Arch to, maybe beat up on these college kids for another year and keep developing and really, have his football senses and that development, down. Because, again, when you go to the NFL, there's not really a whole lot of talent around you at first. And, you look at Caleb Williams in Chicago his first year. I mean, for my Chicago Bears, like, not a whole lot of success because there wasn't a whole lot around him. But then Ryan Poles flips a switch, surrounds him with the talent, and then you start to see those sparks and everything kind of coming around. So, again, I think with Arch, it is a good point, Tyler. Like, an extra year is really going to help him in the NFL like it did with his uncles.
Now, at the end of the day, it is ultimately his decision to make.
Right.
He can get all the influence and advice from his family, but it's up to him to decide if he wants to come back or not. And, again, we're looking way far ahead here. We still got an entire season of football to play, but I think you have to pose the question of, okay, what if he is everything that he's built to be? What if he does win the Heisman Trophy? What if Texas does run the table and win the national championship? What if he puts up ridiculous stats? Why wouldn't he go, right? Why wouldn't he say, I think I've kind of accomplished everything I need to here in college. Development be darned. I'm going to go to the NFL and make even more money.
Right, exactly. And, the salary, and I guess this isn't including signing bonuses either. I was doing a little bit of research. I don't know if this number is exactly correct, but I believe it's $34 million, the entry, for a first-round draft pick.
Sure.
And that's the first round. I think it's scaled out to the top 5 as well, for salaries for players and stuff like that. But, yeah, it's a stupid amount of money. And granted, Arch is, he's making plenty with that Red Bull deal and everything like that. Money really isn't an issue for that kid right now.
Right.
But I don't know. It is one of those questions. It's like, if you go back for that extra year, are you still going to have the same amount of hype? And granted, everything in Arch's camp and like we said, his last name, it's probably still going to be there on the flip side with that.
I do think, and I theorized this to Jack yesterday, if Arch has a very successful year this year, and let's say Texas does win the national championship and accomplishes all those goals that people are setting out for him, I think we're going to really see just how far NIL can go in terms of trying to bring him back for another year. Because, again, the money you make, in college is going to pale in comparison to being the number 1 overall pick, if that is what you're indeed destined for. But Texas especially, they can make it pretty darn worth your while. I think, isn't theorizing here, if he has a successful year and they're trying to convince him to come back, we could potentially see the first in the neighborhood of a $10 million single-season deal if again, he lives up to the hype in year 1 as a starter, and they're trying everything they can to get him back. Because, again, he's a very rare instance. He's got the pedigree. He's got the name, the recognition, and if the play on the field backs it up, there is no amount of money I feel like Texas would not throw at him to try and get him to come back for another year.
Yeah, right. Hitting the nail on the head there, Tyler. If anyone's going to do it, it's Texas, right? Like we saw Ohio State put together a $20 million roster, and, it worked, and Ryan Day. We'll see how that, this will be the first year, I think, for Ohio State, too, not to bring them into the picture talking about Arch, but, I mean, to see what happens next year, after, you spend all that money on a roster, and I don't think they're spending $20 million on their roster this year. Could be wrong, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with Ohio State, and then you also, I guess, flipping the attention back to Texas. Texas can do that if they want to. And, I mean, I think Texas is also one of those schools where if they put together a $20, $25 million roster, $30 million roster, I think, and, they will be able to turn that roster over and be able to, put together a similar, kind of salary for, next year's team. Unlimited resources at Texas, realistically, if you need them.
So, again, we've talked more about a quarterback that's only made 2 pretty insignificant starts prior to this year in Arch Manning than we ever have before. But there's a lot of reason for that. His name, where he goes to school, the hype, and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, are you rooting for him? Do you want to see Arch Manning succeed?
That's a good question, Tyler. I don't know. I mean, I think, he's kept, I guess, the public perception pretty even keel so far. I can remember growing up rooting against Colt McCoy because he very much leaned into the Texas thing.
Sure.
And Sam Ellinger as well, guys like that. But I don't know. Arch really hasn't given any reasons to be oh, God, another Texas quarterback. Here we go again.
Yeah. And look, I love the Mannings. Peyton Manning is probably my favorite all-time
Grew up a Peyton Manning
athlete,
fan.
just bar none there. And again, he's part of that family. They all seem like good people.
Right.
When I hear Arch talk, like he just seems like a dude I'd hang out with, right? If I was in college and we were the same age, like I'd go have a beer with that dude or hang out or whatever. So he seems likable. I think the amount of people that talk about him, including us, tends to make people sour on people like that.
Right.
Like, how we hear so much about that guy. I don't want to see him succeed. But, and again, hopefully it's not at the cost of the Gamecocks, obviously. But, outside of that, like, hey, I hope the kid's good, right? Like, I hope he doesn't fall on his face and crash and burn miserably. Like, I wouldn't say I'm like, going to be, pulling for him as his biggest fan, but I'd like to see him succeed.
Right, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. And until he gives us a reason not to like him, yeah. Like, sure. You really, really hope, he does well. And, I mean, he gives, as much as, he kind of looks like a frat boy, he very much gives, like, not frat boy energy quite yet, which is, I guess, a good thing,
Sure.
But, yeah, and, I think people are talking about this kid, like, because, again, it's mostly his last name, but then he's also been able to do some really, stellar things on the field. And, I guess, when the ball is snapped, we'll really see what everything is made of and who really is the best quarterback in the SEC.
He just got to stop losing his student ID. That's his biggest problem.
And that's my favorite Arch Manning bit. Like and I think I've seen flags in the student section of like his ID, and so I'm glad they rallied around that. And it's a fun little bit around Arch. Like it's a very freshman thing. I lost my ID a couple times freshman year.
Get a wallet. Get a little thing on the back of your phone, man. It's not that hard.
I hate to report, it's like $40 to replace a Carolina card.
Well, I think Arch Manning can swing that pretty easily at Texas. I don't think he's worried about that part.
Well, and I believe it always got back to him, which is crazy.
Yeah, well, again, if you found it, you're like, oh, I can go meet Arch Manning and give him back his ID. Yeah, you could totally do that.
Find somebody on the football team.
Absolutely, yeah. So, that is a pretty funny bit that keeps happening there. I saw some interesting concession stand items that K-State's rolling out this upcoming season. Yeah. We'll discuss food at sporting events as we wrap up hour number 1. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Joe Machika with you on your Friday here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. It's our Ed and Joe Machica wrapping up hour number 1 here on your Friday. Being serenaded by a little Breaking Benjamin.
Yep.
Always clutch. As we wrap up the hour here, I saw this tweet yesterday. Beat writer for Kansas State, Tim Everson, said, K-State just announced some new concession items for the season, which includes a chicken chipotle raspberry burrito, hot honey chicken and waffle sandwich, chicken parm sandwich, meatball sub, and a Philly cheese wrap. That is adventurous. Now, look, it's not the most extreme menu items we've seen, and I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole yesterday of all the weird stuff you can find at Major League Baseball parks, because Major League Baseball, I guess, is the most adventurous when it comes to those kind of things.
Most definitely.
But I'm one of those people, when I go to a sporting event, my wife and I went to the Fireflies game last Friday, and they got an inning in before it just completely downpoured, but still, we got some concessions. I got a hot dog, I got some fries, and I had a beer. Like, very just straight by-the-book ballpark type of food. And I've always been that way. I've never been somebody like, oh, hey, let me go get that wild and crazy thing on the menu. I don't feel like eating those kind of things at a sporting event. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. I think, a lot of times you're asking too much. The chicken chipotle raspberry burrito seems like too many flavor combinations to process during a sporting event.
So let's break that down real quick here.
Right.
Chicken, okay, good. I'm assuming it's fried or something along those lines. Chipotle, love it. A little bit of spice. I can get down with a chicken chipotle wrap or taco or something along those lines. I'm not sure what the raspberry is supposed to do in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not really sure. And I mean, I guess I'm looking at these menu items too, like the Philly cheese wrap. You're too far away from Philadelphia to be doing that. I know, down here we have a lot of people who do Philly cheesesteaks really well, and that's because we have a lot of Philadelphia Jersey kids. Kansas State is way too far away from Philly to be doing anything with a Philly cheese.
Yeah, I would have to, because again, a Philly cheesesteak is something that is really good or really bad. I have to assess your cooking situation. Do you have everything just kind of sitting in a heating thing? I'm not going to be down with that. If I'm seeing you making it fresh though, okay, now we're a little bit. And again, what your situation is inside of a stadium, I don't know. It's a case-by-case basis of Philly cheese because it can go really good or really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And again, you kind of need the griddle and everything going. But yeah, it's a lot for college football, right? Because again, you're college football, you're really trying to just get to the concession stand, get back to your seats, right?
Sure.
Major League Baseball too. You were talking about them being a little bit more adventurous. You have time to roam. There's a ton of games. You maybe you get back to a second major league game, right?
Sure.
You've got time to go. You're doing a little bit more roaming, exploring the ballpark, maybe. More time. But college football, yeah.
I saw somebody, and you can find YouTube channels. They go out there and try all the crazy food at Major League Baseball ballparks, and Truist Park has a tomahawk steak that thing's $100, right? Because again, Braves tomahawk makes a lot of sense. And somebody tried and oh my God, that's the best steak I've ever had in my entire life. But I'm thinking about the functionality, and look, they got tables and stuff like that. But if I'm buying food at a sporting event, I need something that I can sit and watch the game with that doesn't require me to have a full spread or a table or something along those lines. And again, a hot dog, a burger, corn dogs, those kind of things are handheld, very easy. I'm not having to get a knife and fork out. I don't want to have to work too much to eat food while watching an event.
Right. Anything you can kind of just one hand, right? If you can wrap it up and just get it meatball sub.
Sure.
I think the Philly cheese is perfect. And again, you got to do it right. But sandwiches are great. It also begs the question: is a hot dog a sandwich? We don't have enough time for that.
We don't.
Right. So, but yeah, I don't know. The functionality of it, handheld, great. Deserves to be at a sporting game. Popcorn, too. Again, kind of a one-handed thing and also more of a snack. But yeah,
sure.
I don't know. I think, keep it simple, right?
If I give you $5 and you can go to the concession stand at a sporting event and buy one thing, what is that one thing?
Ooh, that's a good question. Depends on where I'm at. I guess being a Midwest boy, I think I'm leaning brat and maybe if it comes with a side of fries, something like that.
Okay.
Bratwurst. Also depends on the weather too. But usually hot dog, bratwurst. Sometimes pretzels, nachos get a little messy.
Yeah, they can. If you have a little the tray where you can dip the cheese and all that kind of stuff, that's a little safer. I guess I just thought about this. I've never asked you before. Are you ketchup on hot dog is sacrilegious? How do you view that?
Okay, yeah. So my dad's from Chicago. So I guess in Chicago, for those who don't know, like ketchup on a hot dog is sacrilege.
They will throw you out of the city.
Right. Yeah. Don't ask for ketchup on a hot dog. At one of those Chicago beef houses or whatever that they will look at you and ask if you're 12. But so and again, ketchup on a hot dog is for kids in the city of Chicago. Again, it's decent on a hot dog, sure, but it's pretty much the ideal hot dog is Chicago dogs with all that. But it's hard to find all that, so you kind of just go mustard.
Yeah, I love ketchup on hot dogs. So, but if I ever go to Chicago, I will be sure not to make that mistake, and I don't want to be ostracized, by the locals.
I was gonna say it's kind of a time and a place thing. Just if you do ask for ketchup on a hot dog in Chicago, just be ready to ask if you're like a child.
Maybe I bring my own. Maybe I just have like packets with me, so they don't see me do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get away with it. And again, ketchup belongs on burgers.
Yeah,
sure.
And hey, I love ketchup on a burger.
Exactly.
I just love ketchup in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ketchup is my favorite.
I hate to not like condiments, man.
Right. 1 hour in the books. Coming up, hour number 2, we'll run the numbers with Corey Parson of the BetMGM Network, looking at odds for the College Football Playoff National Championship. That's up next here on the Extra Point on the Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. In case you haven't looked outside, it's been raining a lot as of late. And if you have an open crawl space under your home and recently experienced a storm, you might have some standing water under there. And I've told you many times that can cause so many problems because the high humidity and condensation can invite things like mold, mildew, and even pests like termites into your home, which you absolutely do not want. Did you also know that about half the air that you breathe in your home comes from your crawl space, and you don't want to be breathing in nasty, termite-filled type of air, right? Well, that's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your crawl space and foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live without worry going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfix.com for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Joe Machika along with you here on your Friday on the game, getting you set for the weekend. Still a little bit of a quieter weekend as we inch closer to the start of the college football season. Do have some NFL preseason games going on. We had some last night. I have some coming up tonight and through the weekend as well. So we are getting some football content slowly starting to trickle back in as the weeks go by, but we are only 3 weeks away, or really 2 weeks away when you count week 0, 3 weeks away from full proper college football starting with week number 1, and we bring in our guy from the BetMGM Network, Corey Parson, to talk about college football, the playoff national championship, and what teams are looking like the favorites to win it this year. Corey, how are we doing today?
What's going on, Tyler? How's everything going on your end, my man?
Doing well. Again, we're 3 weeks away from football really getting started, and that's when we're really off and rolling for our content for the year.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, the NFL, college football kings in this industry. So, Saturdays and Sundays definitely going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully, throughout the course of the season, we can help everybody, line their pockets. The holidays be here before you know it.
Yep.
It might be 200 degrees outside right now, even though the past couple of days, Tyler, have been nice and not as hot.
Yeah,
but, we know the heat is coming back.
Well, it's what Joe and I were talking about in the last hour there, that this little reprieve is interesting, but 95 to 100 degree days are certainly not far away. I contend that first game against SC State, the Carolina's going to have, guarantee it's going to be like 100 degrees that day for sure, because that's just South Carolina.
Yeah, no doubt, and obviously SC State being my alma mater, so I'll be up there in that heat. As I guess the majority of the people there that Saturday would probably be from Orangeburg.
So let's dive into some of these numbers when you look at the college football playoff national championships, and a couple of different layers to this. We'll start off here with line movement, and Ohio State is a team that, of course, won the national championship a year ago. Looks to have another solid roster this year, but it seems like they're moving not far away, but a little bit away from their initial number as I believe the initial odds-on favorite to win it all again.
Yeah, they came out as the initial odds-on favorite to win it all. Obviously, Ohio State, a.k.a., the program, or one of the bigger programs in college football. They're always going to be in the mix. National championship contention, that's what they expect. That's what their recruits expect. That's what their fan base, the administration expects, and that's where they're at. But interesting to see after the initial opening of the line kind of go in the opposite direction. Now, what's interesting about that is a couple of things. They still have a pretty significant amount of tickets in the market at BetMGM, with 9% of the ticket count moving in their direction, but only 7% of the money is coming in. Now, we're just getting into August, right? So you're going to start seeing these lines move constantly. As, when we started talking back in May, it was nothing but sharp action. Well, now we'll see more and more people who are looking to bet on their favorite teams or play a league they have or whatever you have. So the market will start to equalize as we get closer to kickoff.
Yeah, Corey, good to hear from you as always. Texas is one of those teams out of the SEC that really hasn't been moving since, we've been talking to you, seeming to be one of the favorites. We were talking about Arch Manning a little bit earlier as well. What are you seeing out of Texas? Any movement there, and what's the value looking like with the Longhorns?
Yeah, Texas is now the favorite in the betting markets to win the national championship, and rightfully so. It almost seems as if College Football 25 is setting us up for a coronation of the latest of the Manning crew, the first family of football. So Texas, once again, another one of those programs, spending money, know what they're doing, got a Manning at quarterback, went from 550 to 5-1, so there has been some movement. They also are the biggest liability towards the sports books also. Over at BetMGM, 12% of the tickets, and I believe something around the 19%, almost 20% of the handle back in the Longhorns. So they are the people's choice clearly at this point.
Again, running the numbers like our Corey Parson of the BetMGM Network, and you know this as well. We talk about notable bets of just how much you have to put in to win a significant amount if you were to bet on Texas, who is the favorite as of right now.
Yeah, there has been one significant wager at Texas at 5-1 to win it all. The wager was $300,000. So for me, $300,000 would have been a big win. Well, the $300 may have been a big win, but you got to put 300 up. Now, a Texas National Championship will pay that person $1.5 million. So you gotta, if you want to win that kind of money, you have to have that kind of money to spend. So for people who don't have the bankroll to drop $300K on a Texas National Championship, I mean, your best bet really is to try to, if you're behind Texas that much, to try to make some money with Texas betting against the spread throughout the course of the season and just continuing to roll it over.
Well, if that person does win the $1.5 million, that could go a long way to maybe trying to convince Arch Manning to come back for one final year like we were talking about a little bit earlier there.
Definitely think that $300,000 bet was a person from Texas who may have an interest in giving money to the team as well.
Oh, they certainly have a lot of money out there to go around out in Texas, that's for sure. One other team wanted to look at that it seems to have been moved in the positive direction when it comes to their odds to win the national championship is Penn State. And I've said this before on the station many times. If James Franklin cannot win a national championship this year with his quarterback returning and the talent they have returning on that team and the questions we have, especially at quarterback and so many other contenders, I don't think he's ever going to be able to do it. And a lot of people do seem to be pretty high on Penn State to take it a step further and get themselves to a national championship this upcoming year.
Betting markets definitely aligning. A lot of people, expert knowledge of this stuff, also looking at that experience from that team, what they're bringing back up there in Happy Valley. Odds open up at plus 850 on BetMGM. Right now down to plus 700, so basically from close to 9-1 to 7-1. Also a liability for the books as well. It's really three teams that are a liability, with Texas and Penn State being two of them. Big tickets, 9% of the tickets, 8% of the money. So definitely starting to see people feel that this is a year that Penn State could possibly break through and win the national championship as well. Had a good run last year. So people are going to the window banking on Penn State.
Yeah, Corey, kind of making our way around college football here, looking at the ACC a little bit. You know, a team that isn't necessarily going to, you know, light up the South Carolina fan base, but the most bet out of the ACC happens to be Clemson, that team in the upstate. They're getting a lot of talk in the preseason. Cade Klubnik, you know, looking to be, you know, in the Heisman talk, and then also, you know, looking to be as well a first-round draft pick. What are you seeing on the Clemson line, and, you know, is there any value there?
Yeah, well, the odds for this kind of have been bouncing back and forth. Clemson, another team that's a liability to the sports book. That's the third team right there. They opened up at actually at 20-1, and now you see Clemson all the way down at 9-1. So people are buying into Klubnik. People are buying into, you know, the talent that Dabo has come through the team upstate. So they look at the ACC as a league where it's not going to be a lot of competition. So Clemson should almost definitely be in the college football playoff, and you got to be in it to win it, you know, kind of like the old lottery stand. And Clemson being there kind of makes bettors look at them as, okay, they got an advantage. They haven't been to the mountaintop in a while. And people will look at, well, the quarterback play hasn't been there in a while. But Klubnik kind of situated himself last season, comes into this year as a Heisman candidate, like you mentioned, potential first-round draft pick. So right now, for the Tigers, with odds at 9-1, you know, people are getting behind them. But I wouldn't bet them at this number. I would wait to see. You're taking a gamble, but I would wait to see. But that's what this is. But I would wait to see what happens with that matchup in LSU in Week 1. You know, nobody's talking about it, and we may have mentioned it or going to gloss over it, but I'll bring it up right here. LSU was taking some money as well. Their number is dropped from 20-1 to 15-1, and they have 7% of the handle going into the season. So people are looking at, you know, Brian Kelly. Some may be looking at him side-eye with those Week 1 losses, but you know, since he's been there, they have made it to the SEC title game. And, you know, the schedule kind of in some spots bends in their favor this year. So you're seeing LSU taking money, and that number has really, not dropped as much as Clemson had. But that's going to be a big game in week one, and you're going to see some people maybe tearing up tickets, and some people may be holding on a little bit tighter.
Again, running the numbers, thought I got Corey Parson of the BetMGM Network. And Clemson is probably the one team outside of the Big Two conferences and the SEC and the Big Ten that people could see realistically maybe having a shot at winning the national championship, given what the roster looks like this year. One team that's a little bit more of a long shot that surprised a lot of people last year was Arizona State, and they once again are the favorite out of the Big 12 at least to have a shot at the national championship, but their odds are a whole lot farther at plus 8,000.
Yeah, plus 8,000 right now, opened up plus 9,000. So the number did drop a little. No real movement in the market. But when it comes to the Big 12, it's like 6 teams with the shortest odds to win the conference, and then obviously punch a ticket to the college football playoff. So there is some interest in Arizona State coming out the Big 12. But overall right now, we've seen the number drop, which is significant tell right there, but really still not enough to really make a lot of noise.
And we'll hit one more here before we let you go. Boise State, again, last year had a generational talent in Ashton Jeanty that helped get them into the college football playoff, where they did come up short after losing that game to Penn State. You obviously lose him to the NFL now. And look, Boise State's always going to be a trendy pick to make the college ball playoff, but it seemed like if they were ever going to make a deep run in the playoff, last year was going to be the case. But, hey, there's always going to be people that are going to take that chance on a team like that.
Yeah, they are the mid-major that is getting bet the most. Boise State at plus 2,500. Really one of the long shots of it. To me, it's a dollar make you holler type thing. I think the way that college football is currently structured, like you said, last year Tyler probably would have been their best shot. This year they come in, with hopes of making the college football playoff again, which is obviously very something that they can attain. And then once you get in it, you don't know what happened. But in the NIL era, expect the powers to be at the top.
Corey, again, we're inching ever closer to the season finally getting started, and can't wait to run some more numbers next week. And we'll have actual lines on games coming up here very soon as the season gets started.
Yeah, got that coming up. I actually, coming up in the next couple of weeks, I'll be doing these hits live from Las Vegas through the month of August. So definitely have more intel of what's happening on the ground and who's betting what. It's another thing that's interesting. If you're in Vegas and you know who the major players are, you can catch them coming out of casinos at times. And normally when they bet, the line moves, and I'll be out there to bring you that information.
Well, looking forward to that. I know you're going to have a good time out there in Vegas, as anybody would. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.
Always good times, my man.
Corey Parson of the BetMGM Network there. You actually noted just a second ago to me in my ear, Boise State got to go through South Bend this year. They're not afraid of scheduling tough teams in their non-conference.
Yeah, and Notre Dame's scheduling, I guess tough teams, yeah, but teams that are very capable of beating them on their home field, like Marshall and Cal a couple years ago.
NIU last year.
No, yeah, it's capable of being. I don't know.
Well,
that one on Marcus.
I feel like the hope for Notre Dame fans is pretty high this year. What's the hope for South Carolina fans, and how does it compare to last year? We'll dive into some numbers put forth by Mark Cooper of The Athletic coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Joe Machika on your Friday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Ed and Joe Machika hanging out with you on your Friday here on The Game. How hopeful is this fan base? Feel like, for the most part, people mostly optimistic going into this year. Rightfully so, especially when you have a quarterback situation like you have with Lenore Sellers. Going to instill a lot of hope. Doesn't speak for everyone. There's always going to be some pessimists out there that say, well, same old Carolina. Here comes that SCPTSD once again to let us down. But I feel like most people would say they're optimistic, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Tyler. And I love the intro to this segment being the Doobie Brothers, keeping the vibes light, everything good. I would say this fan base is really optimistic. I mean, I guess growing up in South Bend, that fan base is not as quite optimistic. I don't know if that was Brian Kelly's fault, lessening the optimism there, but I don't know, Tyler. I know one thing about this fan base, and that is hope never sinks. And this fan base is really, really optimistic and has a lot of faith in their program and Shane Beamer and everything. When things start to go well, you're going to get the full force of this fan base. And, I think optimism runs pretty deep, here in Columbia.
So Mark Cooper, who writes for college football for The Athletic, has something called the Hope-O-Meter, and he put the article out the other day, where you go in the article and it asks you a question, asks you to put in your name, what school you root for, and it asks you one simple question. Are you optimistic about your team's prospects for 2025? And you can either choose, yes, I'm optimistic and hopeful, or I'm not. And I went in there for South Carolina and put, I'm optimistic. Now, this runs for about 2 weeks. Then he'll put out the results coming up there. And look, it's a small sample size. He had about 5,000 people that did it a year ago, and we'll get to those numbers coming up in just a moment. But it can provide a small snapshot, I think, of where a fan base's head is at with this number of representatives voting on this in terms of what you think your upcoming season is going to be.
Yeah, Tyler. The Hope-O-Meter, I would think for South Carolina is going to be pretty high. I think, and now granted, not as high as like last season. Last season, you would think you had a lot more coming in. But I don't know. I think with the steps that 16 has taken, there's going to be a lot of hope in this fan base and just the natural progression of the way that things go in college football. You would expect this team to take a step forward, but who knows?
So last year, and again, this is a sample size of about 5,000 people, so it's not an end-all be-all in terms of what the actual results would be. But again, if you polled 100 people, like on Family Feud, they poll 100 people to get the answers to the questions, because it's a general consensus of people. So even if you're only asking 100 people from every single fan base, you can still get a pretty good idea of where people's heads are at. Last year, South Carolina on the Hope-O-Meter only had 47% optimism to 53% pessimism.
Yeah. I mean, I guess going into last year, you didn't necessarily know what you had. The wide receiver room was still a question. There were a lot of question marks across the offense, including, the offensive line and everything like that. But I don't know. I mean, depending on what this year's is, like I would think you'd have more last year. But again, I think with everything that 16 was able to do last year and the development of, position groups that were of concern last year, you would expect there to be more hope this year. But we'll see. I mean, I think there's also, the question marks, and this team is also pessimistic, or this fan base is also pessimistic as well to their own fault. And
we were obviously excited about Sellers and the few glimpses that we had seen of him in his true freshman season, or I guess his redshirt freshman year in 2023. But you still don't know until somebody truly takes over the reins how good they're going to be. And if you ran this poll again after the Old Dominion game, that number probably would have been at like 5, right? Like, right. Man, there's no way that this team is going to accomplish anything this upcoming year if you can only sneak 4 points past an Old Dominion team. And obviously, things got better as the season went along. But, you look at the transfers that you had a year ago, and namely like a guy like Demetrius Knight, you're like, okay, I mean, he looked good at Charlotte, but how's that's going to translate? You didn't know what that success was going to look like. You had a good idea about Rocket Sanders, but he was injured at Arkansas, and that was something that had hindered him from being more successful there. So you're almost kind of cautiously optimistic and worried about that as well. And, guys like Jared Brown coming from Coastal Carolina, Avendrevius Jacobs, who hadn't done a whole lot in his time at Florida State, you just didn't know, not to mention the guys in the offensive line. And, again, it ended up being great. And I think those people in that, 53% that were pessimistic would say they're wrong now, but I can how they got to that number last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say, too, you talk about the points where it would be, some of the lowest, on the Hope-O-Meter. I had a niche one, I think, after Luther Burden's catch.
Yeah.
I even though like they started playing Rocky music in the stadium, that was just such a classic. South Carolina doing everything that they absolutely could, and then somebody just goes and makes two fantastic players make a great play. Like Brady Cook, really talented. Luther Burden, really talented. One of the best wide receivers in college football last year. And it was so late in the game, and it was to Missouri. It just felt like, oh, here we go again. So I don't know. I think the hope meter would be down, but then again, that offense took the field, and I would say it kind of rallied right back up as soon as they took the first couple snaps. So I don't know. I think Old Dominion's a fair point there too, Tyler.
Well, and you had gotten so late in the season there. You had
Right.
the win against Oklahoma. You beaten A&M, so you were feeling pretty good overall. Now, yes, that was a deflating moment when Luther Burden makes that touchdown, and you're like, oh God, here we go again. Another loss to Missouri, another loss to Eli Drinkwitz, and then Rocket Sanders has the play of his career here at South Carolina, at least, and in that screen that he took in for the touchdown. I would probably go, in the Old Dominion game's tough to beat, but I would probably go to Ole Miss, right? And I know it was so early in the game, but the fake punt and Elijah and Preston were talking about this earlier, that was kind of like, well, what are we doing? And then you proceeded to get your teeth kicked in for the rest of that game to where, you'd already lost the heartbreaker to LSU. You'd had the struggle against Old Dominion. I feel like after getting run over by an Ole Miss team that had already lost to Kentucky themselves, you're probably looking at that like, oh, God, no, well, what's going to happen here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Ole Miss game, there were a lot of expectations for South Carolina coming into that one. And they just came out flat. That happens sometimes. That can happen, whether it be expectations or you think you got it or you think Ole Miss isn't playing as well as a Lane Kiffin team would, whatever it may be. You got walloped there. And I would say, Tyler, that the fake punt in particular is a great example because, again, it was just deflating and you saw how the rest of the game went. It was a butt kicking.
And I think it's easy to pinpoint third and Sellers against Clemson is maybe the most optimistic point of the entire year. And obviously that came at the very end of the year, and you had seen 5 wins prior to that in a row, which obviously made you feel really, really good. But I think the fact that you have that moment, and at least for another week, you had belief that you could make the college ball playoff, which is something that the South Carolina had quite literally never had before. You took down a team in Clemson that you looked like you knocked him out, right? We didn't know that Miami was going to lose to Syracuse and Clemson was going to be able to backdoor their way into the ACC championship game and make the playoff themselves. But in that moment, you thought you had vanquished your rival from making the playoff themselves. You thought you made yourself a pretty darn strong case to make it yourself. And for that next week, I was doubtful they were going to get in, but there was always I don't know, maybe they could. That is one of the better or more optimistic feelings I think that this program's had in a very long time.
Oh, absolutely, Tyler. And I think, talking about that Clemson game, I think it all stems from the plays that 16 was making all day. Third and, 14, 15, or whatever. I think a lot of South Carolina fans would have kind of just assumed the game was over if they didn't have anybody as quality as Lenoris and the things that he had been doing, to that point. I feel like the whole fan base would be and I don't know if many other people are making, that many plays down the stretch. And then also, that touchdown run, it's insane what he was able to do down the stretch in that game where, it just, you still had belief, you still had hope simply because of the things that he's been able to do.
Well, and you certainly hope that at some point this year you have an optimistic moment that's even higher than that. Right. And that would mean that South Carolina is having a pretty darn good year. But again, I get how people come to that conclusion, from a year ago. And look, if I'm guessing what these numbers are going to look like coming up here in about a week or so when Mark Cooper, tallies the final results, I don't know, I'd probably go 70-30, maybe 60-40. Because again, there's the downside of, well, you lost a lot of talent, especially on defense. But man, when you got 16 and you know what he's capable of, that's going to, the high tide raises all ship type thing. Yeah. That's going to create a lot of optimism for a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree, Tyler. I think within this fan base, too, this is the most belief you've been able to have, or most consecutive standard belief, if you will. It's hard to string it together, especially in the SEC, and to be able to string together, belief and faith and optimism and just having fun being a fan, in the SEC consecutively. So I think it's huge. I agree. I think there's going to be a lot of optimism. If I had to put a number on it, I'd say probably 65, 67, something like that. Sure. Optimism, simply because I know, this fan base is really connected too. So I feel like there's some people who know some gaps.
I think it'll be more optimism than pessimism. I'll feel comfortable in saying that. So that's South Carolina's numbers from a year ago. What are some other notable fan base optimisms that maybe didn't end up panning out too well? We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the Extra Point Tyler Head and Joe Machiko with you on your Friday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Joe Machika with you on your Friday here on the game. We'll get back into the Hope-O-Meter in just a second, but real quick reminder about the game Summer Golf Classic. Friday, August 22nd, 2 weeks from today. You'll be out at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia. Tee time's at 9. Registration begins at 7:30 that morning. They'll have the onion sausages for breakfast, which I ate a lot of last year and were very delicious. Saki's Wine and Spirits going to be providing the Mimosa Bar, and Firehouse Subs going to be there for lunch as well. We're going to have prizes. The golf gun's going to be back. Going to be a great time. If you want to take part, it's $400 for a team. Call 803-755-2000 and press the number 2 to sign up again for the game's Summer Golf Classic. I feel like we can work our Who Sprung a Leak, brought to you by our friends at American Leak Detection, seamlessly into this bit that we're doing here about the Hope-O-Meter from Mark Cooper of The Athletic, because there's a lot of teams, when you look at this list of the results of the Hope-O-Meter last year, that were very, very high in optimism that ended up coming crashing down to earth a season ago. And I feel like there is no better example than Florida State, whose optimism on the Hope-O-Meter last year was at 96. And, well, we all know what happened.
Yeah, not a great year for the Seminoles last season down at Florida State. It'll be interesting to see what all happens down there. I think are they rebuilding this year, Tyler? Like what is going on? And Tallahassee, as they call it. It's going to be interesting. Again, one of the premier programs in college football, and going nowhere fast as it looks. So yeah, I don't know. Certainly springing a big leak there down in Tallahassee, Florida State. Not good.
I would imagine their optimism is going to be significantly lower this year. And when you start off against Alabama, that has the opportunity to bring that even further down if you end up losing that game, especially by a couple scores there. Last year's 100 Club, and again, we're only talking about between 4,000 and 5,000 people that voted on this thing. So this doesn't speak for everybody in the fan base, but I feel like it's enough of a bit of data to give you an insight into where a fan base's head is at. The 100 Club last year, as in all optimism, no pessimism, was Tennessee, made the playoff. Okay, I'd say they'd agree with that. Ole Miss missed the playoff. I think that most of that fan base would be disappointed. Kansas State, decent year. Kansas, not so great year. Oklahoma State, not so great year. Louisville, fine. NC State, you know what I mean? So yeah. I feel like some of these fan bases would be satisfied with what they accomplished a season ago, but not all of them.
Right. Yeah, Tyler. And I think, you look at it, it just means there's more, I guess, delusion in college football and some of these fan bases than meets the eye, I guess. I don't know how NC State, you kind of saw that team, going all the way or 100% optimism. I don't know. Louisville as well. You had to go through Clemson in the SEC, or the ACC, excuse me, not the SEC. But yeah, I don't know. I don't understand. Ole Miss, I kind of get it. You drink the Lane Kiffin Kool-Aid.
Well, they had
it's pretty easy.
One of the most expensive rosters in college football last year.
Right.
They were talking about the last dance, like, oh, we're all in to win. And really, I had them in my playoff. They should have been in, but they lost some inexcusable games.
You got to play defense week in and week out. I hate to break it to you in the SEC. It's how it goes. But yeah, Kansas State, I don't know. I can see the Kansas one. Like, they had a lot of hype.
And Jalen Daniels got hurt last year, which significantly hindered them. So
right.
If he stays healthy, who knows what happens. But Lance Leipold's got that program on a good track.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a perfect example of a basketball school turning a football program. Like we talked about Kentucky not being able to do it last week. Like, I think just look at what Kansas has been able to do. But yeah, I certainly understand it with Kansas. Tennessee, rightfully so. I mean, we kind of know how that fan base is up in Knoxville, and I mean, Josh Heupel's given them a lot of good, a lot to like, and certainly you had Nico, and this year there's a lot more question marks, but a lot of optimism, up there in Knoxville. I think he goes and runs in the water.
Here's one that's interesting for me. Virginia Tech was at 98.
Interesting.
98% last year. They are 500 this year, obviously playing Carolina in week number 1. We're talking about Brent Pry being on the hot seat. Like, they are a complete 180 from where it seems like a lot of their fans were this time a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't get the one with Vatek either. Sure, I guess you were due for a turnaround under Brent Pry. Like, last year you were kind of expecting or more or less, manifesting a better year, and you didn't get it. So yeah, I don't know. I think this year there's going to be a lot more pessimism around that fan base, especially with the date they have set with South Carolina week 1.
By the way, I'm glad you just said Vatek, because I stumbled across this on Twitter yesterday. Apparently, Virginia Tech fans don't like being referred to as Vatek. I don't know if that speaks for everyone, but there was one fan in particular that was very upset about, like, hey, don't call us Va-Tech. You wouldn't call Georgia Tech Ga-Tech or Texas Tech Tech or something like that. So apparently that is something they don't like.
I mean, I get it. I guess I get it with the Georgia Tech, reference, but it's easy to say. Va-Tech is very easy. Virginia Tech, it's, I don't know. Fault the abbreviation, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've heard Va-Tech my entire life.
Right.
I may say VT a lot, but like Va-Tech, yeah. Short. Yeah. You know who I'm talking about? Like, Georgia Tech, GT. I don't know. I guess Ga-Tech never caught on.
Yeah, and like Ja-Tech, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah. Va-Tech's always been. It's just easy to say.
Yeah.
That's you fall to whoever started it.
Yeah. Texas Tech, double T, T by T.
Yeah,
those are my preferred.
And Texas Tech is shorter. Like Virginia has syllable, like a lot more.
You got to sound it out a little bit more.
Right, exactly. Like so, you shorten it, and short and sweet's always better for sure.
One program on the opposite end that was very pessimistic last year was Arizona State. Only 45% of their fans were optimistic about their season. They were picked dead last in the Big 12 and famously made the playoff and should have won the Peach Bowl. I mean, if we get a proper targeting call on Texas, then I think Arizona State is punching their ticket to the semifinals, and who knows what happens after that. But I imagine their optimism is going to be pretty darn high this year. But it can show you, even if you're really down on your team, how they can jump up and surprise you in a season.
The Kenny Dillingham effect is real.
I like Kelly Dillingham a lot, by the way.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think, just he goes about it the right way. He cares very deeply, right? You see that a little bit with Shane Beamer. That's why, South Carolina gets a little bit of love there, too. Like, coaches that care deeply about their players, it goes a long way. And I think, you see that with Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. Going to be plenty of optimism there, and everything that he was able to do with Camp Scatteraboo, and just turning that offense, it's going to keep going up for the Sun Devils down there.
So if you picked one fan base that you think might be overly optimistic this year, who's somebody that comes to mind?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm going to say Ohio State. Simply because of the turnover in that roster. I know you still have a lot of talent, in that wide receiver room, and Jeremiah, it's all, growing for Ryan Day. But I don't know. I think, the optimism of what you were able to accomplish last year and the nature of Ohio State's fan base is like, okay, like once we're at the top, we're at the top. But I think the pessimism comes for Ohio State and Michigan, that the game that they haven't been able to win for a while. But we'll see. I don't know. Penn State's always, a little delusional up there in Happy Valley, too.
I actually went with Illinois. Because they're a fan, like, this entire offseason, and again, the connection to Carolina makes it a little bit more pertinent here. But we've heard, like, hey, Illinois could be the next Indiana. Here's how the schedule sets up. They have these guys returning. Like, they could be the team that could surprise people and make the playoffs. I feel like their fan base is getting gassed up a lot, and I feel like their optimism is going to be pretty high.
I like that, and you brought up Indiana. I'm sure Indiana's right up there too, because it's the first you give a basketball or a former basketball school, some hope in a different sport. They're going to wake up the echoes of loving basketball and their basketball fandom. So I don't know. I think Indiana's thinking they're going to undaunted. They're going to be right at the top, and I don't know. I don't necessarily see that either. So a lot of schools in the Big Ten, sure, because they think it's wide open, and in Southern Cal not being as good, you only got to be 1-2 teams. I don't know.
Well, regardless of what the optimism is going to be, one team and one fan base is going to be national champions when it's all said and done. But what we talk about this year's national champions is one of the best college football teams of all time. Jimbo Fisher thinks that his 2013 FSU team might be in that exact conversation. We'll dive into that coming up next as we wrap up hour number 2 of the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Joe Machika on your Friday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Joe Machika wrapping up hour number 2 here on your Friday on the Game. Jimbo Fisher's got a lot more time on his hands now that he's not actually coaching. He's going to be on the ACC Network coming up this fall and was recently on a podcast talking about the glory days back when he was at FSU. Of course, they won the national championship in 2013. Undefeated season, Jameis Winston wins the Heisman Trophy, and he claims that 2013 FSU team may be the most dominant team in college football history.
People don't realize this. If you go back and look in the last 90 years of football, do you know that's the most dominant team in NCAA history? Point differential. See, LSU broke our record by most points in a season by 1 point, but they played an extra game.
And not only that, so like you mentioned earlier,
we called the dogs off at halftime. Yeah. We weren't trying to do it. We didn't know. That's just what we played. But you remember, we led the country in defense that year in scoring. Our point differential was 39 points a game. The largest top 5 deficit, the 51-14 game. Largest top 25 deficit, the Maryland 62-0 game. They were top 25, beat them 62-0. Beat Clemson 51-14, who was 2 top 5 teams who finished in the top 5. Mm-hmm. I mean, those teams, remember the NC State game, we're up 35-0 in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that, but I'm just saying how dominant that team wanted to be. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Whoever we played, if you look it up, it doesn't get the respect. Every guy on that team played in the NFL. It started and played. That secondary, all of them played 8 or more years. Mm-hmm. Terrence Brooks, I mean, how good a player he was. I mean, PJ and Darby and Jalen and LaMarcus and Terrence and Telvin and Eddie and I mean the whole crew up from Timmy. I mean, all of them. I mean, on the offensive line, everybody played forever. And then that team does not get the respect and had the best kicker.
Yeah.
And our punter would have been one of the tops in the country. He just didn't punt enough. He didn't qualify enough. He didn't have enough punts. Yeah. I mean, that team does not get the respect, and I'll put that team up with any team in the college football ever.
So when he says something like that, here come the debates. Well, this team was better than that team. That team wasn't good as this team. Or maybe some people might say, hey, guess what? He's right. Florida State was dominant. I do remember watching that team. You didn't even have to watch the games, right? You just say, all right, well, they're going to blow them out by 50 points because that's what was happening. And really the most competitive game they played was that national championship against Auburn where they did, James Winston had to organize the late touchdown drive to put them over the top and, conclude that season. But when you open up this kind of door, we have to throw the hypotheticals out there. We're never going to be able to prove it. But if you could pick any 2 teams that you deem as some of the best in college football history and put them head-to-head on the field, what are your choices?
Yeah, Tyler, this one's, I guess, simple for me. I don't know. I'm going 2011 Alabama, the one that ran through Notre Dame in the national championship.
That was 2012 Alabama.
Or 2012 Alabama.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so 2012 Alabama. That's right. And then I'm going 2019 LSU. I think that is the modern day, I guess, something my generation will take as one of the greatest college football teams ever, simply because Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and just the aura that oozed from that team, and Eddie O, and just the way that they were able to get it done, is always going to be up there for me. So yeah, those are my 2. I'd like to see those 2 play. I think Jimbo's got a fair point here too. Like those Jameis teams were really, really fun and also really good too. So I think they're up there, but I don't know if I'm putting them top 2.
2019 LSU is a really good choice, and that to me is one of those teams. And they ran through Georgia in the SEC championship game that year. But you almost couldn't be mad, right? You were marveling at how good and dominant of a team they were, and you knew. And again, they dominated Clemson in the national championship too. You knew they were going to run roughshod over literally everybody that season. That you kind of just sat back in awe of what you were witnessing. So they're definitely a candidate for me. But I would put them up against the 2001 Miami Hurricanes, undefeated national champions. Let me just run through some names that were on this roster in case you didn't know. Ken Dorsey, Frank Gore, Clinton Portis, Sean Taylor, Vince Wilfork, Jonathan Vilma, Kellen Winslow, Jeremy Shockey. I can keep going here. That's just a few names. Not all these guys were even major contributors that season. That's how deep that roster was. And I think now I would put LSU's offense a little bit higher because, again, I think you have a better quarterback in Joe Burrow than Ken Dorsey was, and obviously elite talent at wide receiver too with Jefferson and Jamar Chase. But that Miami defense, man, that was nasty. I would like to see them in a hypothetical face-off against that LSU offense.
Yeah, no, that I agree. That 2001, you left out one of the biggest pieces on that Miami defense. Ed Reed.
Ed Reed, yeah.
Are you
Again,
kidding me?
like I said, I could keep going.
Right, you
here.
can keep going. Yeah, I agree. And yeah, good choice for that one. I'm glad we're in consensus about 2019 LSU, just simply because like that team didn't seem challenged at all. Really, like
Yep.
I mean, they're a couple close, right? But I don't know. Like they cleared everything in their path. Like they were looked like world beaters that year.
Sure.
And so I think that kind of puts them on that level. And yeah, I think that just that Miami defense and watching.
Sure.
I mean, because again, it's a little before my time, but yeah, like it's just watching highlights of that defense is so fun.
And I wonder with the transfer portal, NIL, I wonder if we're ever going to see a team like that again. And look, I will stand here and say I don't think we're going to see an undefeated national champion for a couple years at least. That's going to be a very hard thing to accomplish, how many games you have to play and how much the talent is spread out now. But a team that really, like LSU, like that Florida State team, like 2001 Miami, that you just knew every time they walked on the field, they were probably going to win by 20 or 30 points. I don't know if we see that kind of thing again, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Tyler, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think, even with these big rosters, and granted there's, salary cap and things kind of coming into play here to kind of level that out even more so. Yeah, I agree with you. I think, the way that talent is spread out, like guys are looking for opportunity, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like we've seen a lot of talent recently come out of the MAC. Like there's talent everywhere.
Sure.
And the portal is, allows guys to, move around and find that opportunity at bigger schools. So yeah, I think there's more parity in college football to where, going undefeated, like it's almost impossible now. You're going to have another world beater team and,
Sure.
and a couple diamonds in the roughs, that are sticking around on, I guess, a team-friendly deal, which is crazy to be talking about college football.
Well, in 2019, LSU was the perfect storm of having everybody together at the right time, and Joe Burrow taking that next step as a quarterback. Again, with how much roster turnover you have, and unless rev share kind of cools that down, I don't know if we see that kind of dominance again in the very near future, at least.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Tyler.
So, but fun to talk about. Always cool to reminisce and have hypotheticals that we're never going to be able to prove, right?
Right, I know. That's what talking season's for. It's
It
the
is.
best. We got real football coming up.
It's almost here. 23 days away from kickoff. Appreciate it, Joe. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait, Tyler. Appreciate you having me as always.
That'll do it for the Extra Point here on your Friday on the Game. 11 o'clock on your Friday morning. Welcome in Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler, West, and Chris, along with you here back in studio. Of course, enjoyed our time out at Firehouse Subs in Eldon yesterday, getting to open up another store. I don't know how many more stores Larry's going to be opening, but I will happily go and get to try the first sandwiches from each location, as they were fantastic as always yesterday.
Infinite Firehouse Subs, I feel like.
Yes.
Stores.
Please.
Yeah, just keep opening them. Go check it out if you're in that area. Again, wherever you are, like we always tell you, there's one nearby. But, yeah, food was fantastic. And try the fries, man. The fries are on point. So, yeah, shout out Larry, as always.
These guys seemed to hold down the fort well after I left, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
I trust you.
I think we did.
Yeah, I trust you.
We can talk. As long as we don't have to, like, push the buttons or anything.
Yeah, as long as Dave reminds you when the breaks are. That's all that matters. So we don't,
We don't even need that.
Oh, you guys are okay. All right, just
I
saying.
mean, they're the same time every single day.
I know, but I don't
Little
know,
wiggle room.
I don't know if you guys are as religious clock watchers as I am.
Yeah, we do. We watch
it's a constant anxiety for me, so I always have to.
We've improved, Tyler. There's development. It's a developmental game. Radio.
You guys are being developed.
Yes.
You're what? We're year 3, 4 doing this now.
Yeah,
so
like that.
You're seniors in the program, which I appreciate. A lot to get to from the camp observations you guys had a little bit earlier on this morning. Feel like we actually saw a little bit more than what you guys had seen in the first couple of days out there at camp so far.
Yeah, we did get to stick around a little bit, and kind of I think you actually got an idea today of what a practice looks like, other than just kind of the 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 stuff that would come later in practice. But, typically we're out there, man, it's a lot of just special teams work. Today was more, I think gave you an idea, if you were trying to just take it all in, gave you an idea of how much is going on at one of these college football practices at any given time when all the position groups are with their respective coaches and staffers and are just going through a practice. So you basically have organized chaos going on at all times at these things, and gave us a little look, wide receivers against air, getting a view of some of the freshmen, what gains have they made, how they look physically, and frankly just gives you a chance to breathe and actually observe a little bit, as opposed to just going so fast that you can't even process everything that you're seeing. So, yeah, today was good. Got to watch the wide receivers a lot. And, man, Chris just continues to double down on the fact that they have, revamped this receiver room completely.
Yeah, I mean, the guy, to me, that really stole the show was Donovan Murph. And, let's put all this in context, right? We're not out there for a whole practice, okay? We're out there for, 30 minutes, stretch, which is 7-8 minutes, and then a few periods. We're in the indoor. Didn't get to look at the linemen today. So it's really a skill guy focus. And they're still in helmets, shoulder pads, and shorts, right? They're still in the acclimatization period. So it's not like any of this stuff that we're saying is, okay, we watched a scrimmage or we watched an 11-on-11. Keep it in that proper context. But, man, when you watch Donovan Murph out there, he looks a little different, even in a group that we feel a lot better about. You've got the returners on the team. You've got Harbor and JB, Jared Brown, Maceo Bennett, Jacobs, right? And then you have that 6-man freshman class, 5 of which we got to see this spring. We all know Brian Rowe had a big spring. Some other guys showed flashes. There are things to like about all those guys. I kind of felt like after they signed that group, even skipping a year of high school, which Donovan Murph did, reclassified from 2026 to 2025 so he could go ahead and enroll, he did have to wait till the summer. He was the only one of that 6-man group that arrived this summer. Even then, I kind of felt like he was the most college ready, just from just looping everything in, right? His production on the field, the physical tools, the mentality, the football IQ. Those other guys, it's not to say anything of them, those guys have those things too. But he's just a little different. And so, I was curious, hopeful to get our first extended look at him, and we got that. Again, not a scrimmage, not an 11-on-11. Out there running drills, having quarterbacks throw, running routes on air. But you can just tell when a guy has it, and to me he does, has size, can run, can threaten vertically, really sudden as a route runner, had a one-handed catch on the sideline. Like, he makes it look very natural, very easy almost.
And you guys have talked plenty about, him through the high school process and coming here about looking that part and having the physical attributes of what you see in a wide receiver. And he certainly looks like somebody that didn't skip a year of high school and looks like he falls right in with what you expect of a guy in the SEC. And when you start to see these things like the route running you noted on today, the one-handed catches, stuff like that, it starts to create this entire picture of what he's possibly going to be. Now, again, he's going to have to compete for playing time just like everybody else. So we're not sitting here saying, hey, this is going to be your breakout star of 2025, but he's making it seems like a good a case as anybody to get out there and actually find some playing time this year.
Yeah, and I mean, my biggest takeaway, though, was just watching the whole group run, man. Like, these guys, Mazio, to me, already looks like he's moving at a different pace than he was last year. And, how much of that is physical, how much of that is mental, just being completely comfortable with what you're doing. Just you're talking about a guy who works so hard and cares so much, and I think seeing it all kind of come together, like not to put too much into one little glimpse of practice, but I think you start to, based on what you hear and then seeing it with your own eyes, you start to maybe raise the expectation for what that group could be. I don't know if we know what the distribution of catches is going to be, because I think there's so much competition, and we've talked about that, but even some of the guys that really have not been talked about as much, take Alex Cyrus, for example. Just watching this kid run routes, watching him catch the football out in front with his hands, not letting it get into his body, watching just the way he moves, to really put it simply, is impressive. Like, just the overall speed, the overall size in that group, huge step forward. I mean, Brian Rowe, I think, still projects to play a ton for South Carolina. I'll be curious to see with the guys like Mazio, Brian Rowe, Jared Brown, who ends up inside at slot, and typically you're only playing one of those guys at the time. So, is Mazio your slot receiver, and then Brian Rowe is kind of your backup? Does Jared Brown play slot? Does he play outside? I mean, Mazio can certainly play outside as well. I think that's going to be as big of a factor as any in determining who gets on the field, is going to be the actual split of who is at which position within kind of that wide receiver group. And, I do know that Brian Rowe told me at Media Day, like, hey, I've worked at multiple receiver spots. So that would be slot, of course, and outside. We know Mazio's done both. Jared Brown's done both. So I think that'll be fascinating to see exactly how they slot this thing. And I continue to be told, do not forget about Vandrevius Jacobs. He gets lost in the shuffle a little bit when people talk about the other three returners, but he's had a really good offseason. I think he was dinged up a little bit to start camp, but he was out there today, was dressed out, was participating in what we saw, and he generated some buzz this time last year. So don't forget Dre. I think he is as much in that mix to be a starter as anybody.
Yeah, and to go back to Murph, too, so you know how we've been talking lately about how people say, you said the offensive line was going to be dominant, and never really happens. Again, just to kind of, I think you got to temper expectations a bit for Murph or any freshman receiver, but since I'm kind of stuck on Murph, saying that he looks the part, looks like everything they thought he would be, that doesn't mean he's going to go lead the team in receptions, or even that he's going to play a lot at the beginning of the season. Those things could evolve. Maybe he comes on the back half of the season. Alshon Jeffrey came on in the back half of his freshman season, and that was Alshon Jeffrey. So, you still got to temper expectations. Again, this is a guy that has he came in later. He has more work to do as far as learning the playbook, getting acclimated to the offense, just strength and conditioning, all the things. but just what he is physically, I think he checks all those boxes. So, I mean, you're right, Wes. Super competitive. We talk about it all the time. Super competitive room here. So, going to be fascinating to see how it ultimately shakes out with all the playing time.
Well, it seems like there's ample opportunity in that wide receiver room for some of these young guys to find their way in the field, much like Amazio Bennett was able to do last year. And, yeah, we think Amazio Bennett and Nick Harbor are going to have very, successful seasons this upcoming year in their second Nick Harbor's third year in the program, Amazio Bennett's second there, but there's nobody that you look at, hey, we don't have 2,000-yard receivers from a year ago or something like that where they absolutely have their spots unlocked. Everything is, like you said, an open competition, and if it is a Donovan Murph, if it is a Brian Rowe, Lex Cyrus, whoever it may be, if they are just showing that they are the best option in camp, they're going to get their opportunity when the season starts.
Yeah, and I heard Mike Furry get asked kind of about the thought of like wide receiver one or like a dominant wide receiver. And, you can have the ball being spread around kind of because nobody has stepped up, which I think is typically the case when you start talking about wide receiver by committee. That was a huge discussion point by Dow Loggins last year. Like, hey, we can't replace Xavier Legette with one guy. It's going to have to be multiple people. Or you can have kind of wide receiver by committee because you just feel that good about multiple guys, which is, I think, what you hope. And, Furry's point was, yeah, like if you have a dominant guy, for South Carolina, I think of like an Alshon Jeffrey. That was just, hey, we're going to get him the ball. Everybody knows it's going to him, and good luck stopping him. That's cool if you have a guy like that. But also, if you have 3-4 guys that you can truly trust and go out there and spread the ball around and, this guy catches 50 balls, the other guy catches 42, and the next guy catches 35, then that may be an even better situation in terms of your offense. And I'll be honest, guys, I don't really think I'm worried at all about the weapons on this offense. Like, I think there are ample weapons in the passing game, and it's time for people to start talking about Michael Smith a little bit more. We know he's there. We know he played a good bit as a true freshman last year. Didn't have a ton of just overall production in the passing game. But when we talk about receivers and guys that are going to be a big part of the passing game this year, watch out for Michael Smith, year 2. I think there is some evidence that he could be in line for a true breakout season in terms of going out there with the production to match, again, what was a guy who played a ton last year as a true freshman.
We'll talk more camp observations as well as hit our 23 days until kickoff trivia question coming up next as the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs rolls along on your Friday on the game.
All right, guys, like Tyler said earlier, we'd had a great experience in Elgin, South Carolina at the brand new Firehouse Subs location out there. If you're in that area, go check them out. If you're anywhere else in the Midlands, there's probably a Firehouse Subs near you as well. Hit up firehousesubs.com right now or do what we do. Download the Firehouse Subs app, hit the Rapid Rescue to go, order an awesome sub, and then get points and just keep collecting them, then trade them in for free food later on. That's what we do. If you want to try something a little bit different from your normal, how about the new Smokin' Barbecue Triple Stack, the Carolina Gold version? It is brand new, and they have brought back the classic with 3 different meats, barbecue sauce, slaw. It is fantastic. Or, like we do, just get your favorites. Mine still brisket, add bacon. It's fantastic, just like all the other subs at Firehouse Subs. FirehouseSubs.com, Firehouse Subs app. Get your lunch right now.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris with you on your Friday here on the game. We are set to be joined by the CEO of the Peach Bowl and the Athletic Kickoff, and Gary Stoken coming up at the bottom of the hour as we talk about Carolina and Virginia Tech coming up in 23 days. And we'll have more camps observations here in just a moment. But it is time for our 23 days until kickoff trivia question. We travel back to January 1 of 2013. The Outback Bowl, Bruce Ellington, wearing number 23, caught the winning touchdown pass in the waning seconds to defeat Michigan 33-28. How many yards was that touchdown, and how much time was left on the clock? I need both parts of this answer.
Oh, man. Knew you were going with the Bruce question.
Did you do your research, Chris?
Nope, not really. I did think of this moment, but I just didn't go back and...
Okay.
I didn't know if you would go that deep, but I should have known.
All right, so for those who maybe were driving and half listening, and certainly not for me, you want to repeat that one more time?
Yes.
Tyler.
Bruce Ellington, of course, board 23 for
Yes.
South Carolina. On the Outback Bowl on
That's the
January
guy that
1.
Spurrier poached from the basketball
Oh,
team,
God.
according to Ron Morris.
There's a basketball bonus question coming up here in just a second, by the way.
Oh, no.
On the famous Outback Bowl where Clowney had his hit, Carolina would
Yep,
go on to
yep,
win that
yep.
game. Bruce Ellington would catch the winning touchdown pass with only a few seconds left. How many yards was that touchdown that he caught from Dylan Thompson, and how many seconds were left on the clock when Michigan got the ball back?
Is it a Price is Right on the yardage? Or the time?
You know what? I'll give you prices
Feeling
right.
charitable?
I'll feel charitable. I'll give you prices right because that is very specific.
All right,
But I need you got to be the winner on both to get the full point.
I'm gonna go 32 yards on the touchdown.
Okay, time.
With 27 seconds left.
All right, Chris.
God, I feel like there's less time than that. But then I just can't. Like, I feel like I'm going to go too low. All right, let me go. I thought the pass was a little bit longer than that, but then the number in my head I think is a little too high. Touchdown pass.
Were you instantly in the same, were we in the same realm, though? Or no?
I mean, what's your definition of realm?
I don't know.
I mean, not really, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, the pass, I had in my head a decent amount more, but I'm walking it back as I can't visualize.
So has my answer, is it
No.
affecting your...
No.
What do you think? He was like 50 yards?
Yeah, at first I did, and then I was like, I don't think that's right. But I can visualize the end of the pass and exactly what it looks like, but just not.
You're trying to read me, Wes?
Where? Yeah, he is. All right, give me 44 yards and 6 seconds.
Oh,
All right.
God. All right. I definitely think it might be lower than my time. I'm not changing my answer. I'm just thinking through this.
Okay.
It was definitely the thing about the throw is that they were already pretty much in field goal range. I feel like, which is why I don't think 50 or 40. Maybe it got it. 40 is the upper limit of what that throw was.
Right.
It's the time that I'm
Struggling.
very unsure with. I think it was more than 6 seconds, but Chris still may still be closer than me because I just can't see the time in my head. But they were right around the 30-yard line, give or take.
So you actually nailed the yardage at 32.
Whoa, nice.
The time was 11 seconds, though. So Chris did get closer to the time. So do you guys each want half a point? No point? How do we want to do this?
Doesn't matter. It's the same difference.
Half a point.
Half
yeah.
a point?
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
Just to give us some credit.
But there's a chance for a bonus question with half a point, as you mentioned.
Okay.
Of course, Bruce Ellington also played basketball here at South Carolina. We'll go prices right here as well. His career high in a game for South Carolina's men's basketball team was what?
Can you tell us the game?
Furman. Freshman year.
Okay.
18 points.
18 points. 25.
31.
31. Okay,
31
I
points.
completely memory hold that. Good for him.
Yeah, baller, dual sport. That's special.
Man, that team they had in high school at Berkeley. We were talking about that the other day, Wes. They had a couple guys whose names are escaping me, but they had Bruce, they had I think it's R.J. Robinson in the backfield, and another cat, and they just ran the ball all over people. I mean, it was something else.
Yeah.
So
Special guy.
yeah,
Very
heck
cool.
of a player.
There's your 23 days until kickoff trivia question. Want to hit a few more notes here from the camp today before we get to Gary Stokan coming up here in a couple minutes. So you guys also noted, of course, you guys have seen kick and punt returns pretty much every time you've been out there. Also noted Judge Collier working with kick returner this time. Again, it's a big group. There's a lot of guys that are doing that. We're not saying he's first in line for being a kick returner, but it is interesting that he's now at least in the mix for that as part of that group.
Yeah, and we only noted that, frankly, because we hadn't seen that before. And, I mean, there's literally, like 10-plus guys?
Yeah, between the two.
Between kickoff return and punt return. So I hesitate to even call that a note, but it was like, all right, here's something. And they are very just kind of aggressive about putting guys back there. Like, I think some of it, you're working special teams. It's just to keep them involved. You know, only one guy is going to be the kickoff returner. Only one guy is going to be the punt returner. We know that coming into camp that, you know, Nick Harbor is the leader at kick return and that Jalen Kilgore is the leader at punt return. So those other guys are going to have to do something, I feel like, to pass them. But it was at least noteworthy because we had not, at least when we were out there, seen Judge out there.
Yeah. I mean, you keep that going. Eventually, they'll probably, I would think, narrow that field a little bit more. And it's not a complete unknown. I mean, Jody Camillus has come out and not really hiding it. Like, hey, these are I think he's called them the clubhouse leaders, front runners. Nick at kick return, Jalen Kilgore at punt return. And that makes sense. You know, those positions, sometimes you want to lean on experience. Jalen has it. Nick was back there a bit last year, kind of the up man for most of the time, but he's at least been out there. A lot of the guys that you're looking at out there are freshmen, you know, defensive backs or receivers. There's some others that are not, of course. Luke Doty on kick return. You know, Dre Jacobs on punt return. JB, Jared Brown's been out there, I think, at both on both at times. So you do have some other options. There's some guys that I think are kind of intriguing there, like a Vakari Swain. I've always been intrigued by find a way to get the ball in that guy's hands, even though he's on defense.
Sure.
You know, let him be a returner, but they're looking for reliability and that familiarity. So those two guys are the front runners, but just, you know, a few other names to keep an eye on that they'll keep auditioning and getting a look at in practice.
So there's your notes from camp observation day number 3 as we're a week into it. So far, Wes, I believe you got a bounce, correct? But we'll talk to Gary Stokan again from the Peach Bowl and the Aflac Kickoff coming up next as we are 23 days away from kickoff. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. Welcome back in. It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on your Friday. Chris, we talked about in the last segment, only 23 days away from Carolina kicking things off against Virginia Tech, and pretty cool venue to be a part of with the Aflac kickoff game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That's going to have people from all over flocking here in just a little over 3 weeks' time.
Going to be a fun time, Tyler. You know, everybody wants to get inside Williams-Brice Stadium. I get it. But a lot of fans have also been clamoring to play in this exact game for many years, wondering, you know, when are they going to get the opportunity? Now they have it. A lot of Gamecocks are heading to Atlanta.
Well, and here to talk about that game from the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, the CEO and president also presiding over the Aflac kickoff game is Gary Stokan. Mr. Stokan, first of all, appreciate you taking your time to join us today. We're obviously excited for the season to get started in general, but this is obviously a huge opportunity for the Gamecocks to be a part of. Where's your anticipation level and excitement level just over 3 weeks out from this matchup?
Yeah, we're as well excited as you are, Wes and Tyler. We're looking forward to putting on 2 Aflac kickoff games within 27 hours with Tennessee and Syracuse at noon on ABC on August 30th. And then on Sunday at 3 o'clock, Virginia Tech and South Carolina in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So we had our weekly meeting with Mercedes-Benz yesterday talking about, you know, how we're going to do all that. And so, yeah, when you say 23 days, it gets us excited.
Gary, it's Chris, and thanks again for joining us. My first question relates actually to the Beamers. I mean, there's obviously an interesting storyline here when you consider it's going to be Shane Beamer matching up against his alma mater, a place he's coached at, a place situated where he grew up, and, of course, where his dad, the legendary Frank Beamer, coached for so many years. And I understand that there's some plans to, you know, kind of lean into that a little bit and honor the Beamers before the game. Frank Beamer, can you go into that for us a little bit?
Yeah, dinner with Frank and Cheryl and Jim Grobe and Holly Grobe 2 weeks ago at the Lake Oconee, and just talked to Frank and Cheryl that we want to honor them. Frank has coached Virginia Tech in our bowl game, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl game. He's coached in our Aflac kickoff game, and he's played in our Peach Bowl, Southern Company Peach Bowl Challenge, and he's won the Dodd Trophy for Coach of the Year. So all 4 of those entities are things that we manage, operate, and own, and so we thought it was appropriate before the game to have Frank and Cheryl down on the field for them, and Frank is going to provide the invocation as well. So, and you know, just can't say enough about my appreciation for Frank and Cheryl and Shane, the type of people they are, the family they are, and what they've done and meant for college football. So very blessed to have the opportunity to honor Frank and Cheryl.
Again, Gary Stokan, CEO and president of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and the Aflac kickoff game, joining us here on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. And one specific thing that's really neat about this game for South Carolina and Virginia Tech as well is it's going to be a standalone. That Sunday, it's going to kick off at 3 o'clock on ESPN, going to be viewed by the entire country with no games opposing it. And this isn't the first time the Aflac kickoff has had multiple games on a weekend. Sometimes you've had them on Friday, Saturday. They've been on Saturdays and Mondays. What are the conversations? What's the process of getting a game like this to be a standalone event on that Sunday like it's going to be this year?
Yeah, we've worked with the ACC to help them with their Monday night unopposed TV slot on Labor Day Monday in the past. And we looked at this year, and now that ESPN has opened up the Sunday window for broadcast without an NFL game, we thought it made it appropriate to play on the unopposed in the afternoon, great time slot. And it's really, in favor of the fans, because the fans can come in Friday night, spend Saturday in Atlanta, Sunday go to the game and still get back Sunday night, or Monday, which they're off with Labor Day, and still get back to work on Tuesday. So it's more favorable travel-wise for the fans, and a great TV slot to have a great ACC-SEC matchup.
Gary, we were talking earlier about just the demand for this game and how a lot of South Carolina fans have been wanting to play this contest in Atlanta for quite a while and are now having that opportunity. So to that end, how many What are the ticket sales? What's the ticket demand look like from your end?
Well, you're telling me. I've been trying with Ray Tanner to put South Carolina in this game for about 10 years. And the South Carolina North Carolina game has been, more often than not, the way that South Carolina North Carolina have opened the season in the past. And so to have this opportunity and then to better lucky than good to have it in Shane Beamer's playing against his alma mater and his dad's team makes it all the more interesting. But we've been trying for a while to get South Carolina to come because, South Carolina's got a great fan base, number one. Number two is they've done, I think, an unbelievable job over the last 4 years, going into his fifth year. They recruit Georgia hard. They have a lot of kids from Georgia on their roster. It's an easy trip for them. And, it's a great brand name in the SEC. So we've tried to maintain the ACC-SEC matchup in our kickoff game format because that was so successful previous to us joining the CFP as a CFP playoff bowl. About 18 straight years with ACC versus SEC in the old Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl days. And so we said, strategically, let's match ACC-SEC up because we know in the new format of the CFP, we were going to get more national teams from around the national landscape being a part of now the playoff with the quarters and semis. And at the end of this year, it was the semifinal game. So it's going to be a great year to have these two ACC-SEC teams match up in the Aflac kickoff game and then end the season on January 9th with the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl CFP semifinal game.
Again, Gary Stokan, CEO and president of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and the Aflac Kickoff, joining us here on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. I did speak to you at Media Days. I know you spoke to 1 million people, so you probably don't remember our conversation, but I forgot to ask one very important question about this matchup. You have two fan bases that have songs associated with their programs, perhaps better than anybody in the country, with obviously Sandstorm here at Carolina and Enter Sandman up at Virginia Tech. I know neutral sites can be a little bit different in how they handle those things. Will we hear both of those songs in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in 23 days?
Great point. We have tried to keep the traditions of the schools, intact. So, our goal is to do that, to make it as much as a home game as we can for both teams in carrying on their traditions. So that's the plan right now, to keep as much as we can Virginia back in the game. It's and to some degree, you don't want to take a favor of one team versus another, but for the most part, we want to keep that tradition alive.
And you mentioned, of course, you have the Syracuse-Tennessee game the day before at noon, and Mercedes-Benz Stadium, obviously a phenomenal venue, and there's a lot of work that goes into flipping things from one day to the next, with a little over 24-hour turnover there. What's the logistics of that, your crew that's going to be working there to change things on the field, obviously clean up the stadium before the Hokie and Gamecock fans come in that next day?
Yeah, we met just yesterday with Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We'll have another meeting coming up here in another week where we're talking about all the planning that needs to take place, the signage that goes up. We'll need to clean the field as well as clean the stadium to put on this game within 27 hours of each other. But Mercedes-Benz is up to it. They do a great job. Obviously, it's a lot easier in some cases that now we have a lot of digital signage in place. So that's easy to change out. Obviously, we got to change the end zones out. But the midfield and the 20-yard lines will stay the same with the old leather helmet. And we'll have ACC and SEC logos on the field because both games are ACC versus SEC.
Of course, I know you can't probably pick a favorite in this game, but when you look at this matchup, as well as Syracuse and Tennessee, what are the things that you hope to see that, generate not only a great game for the teams on the field, but for the event itself in the Aflac Kickoff?
Well, we're looking for a sellout, number one. Number two, we're looking for at least 2 overtimes to create great viewership. Number three, a safe safe game for the players and the fans, travel, but also, in the stadium. And, we've created a great relationship and partnership with AFLAC. That September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And we've put a theme to both these games, Kickoff for a Cause. AFLAC's given $147 million to create the AFLAC Cancer and Blood Disorder Center in Atlanta. And we've donated over $23 million to create trials and cures in the AFLAC Cancer and Blood Disorder Center to hopefully give a kid another month, another year, or possibly a lifetime to live. And everything from neuroblastoma to leukemia, we have 14 trials now that are started, and we just donated some money to create 4 new trials, 18 trials in 5 different hospitals in 4 different states. And hopefully, we can get something that ultimately is going to give a kid another lifetime. So we'll be promoting that in our raffles, 50-50 raffle during the game, and donating that money to the Kickoff for a Cause, as well as making a $100,000 donation that AFLAC will match. And we're using college football for the greater good.
Well, that is phenomenal. I know, obviously, cancer, especially childhood cancer, is something near and dear to everyone's heart, and we certainly appreciate what you guys do, with AFLAC and all that, there in Atlanta.
Thank you.
We are so excited for this game to come up in 23 days and just to get another college football season started. So we appreciate you taking your time, and we'll see you in about 3 weeks.
Well, thanks so much for the interest in us, and look forward to hosting you guys when you come in and all the Gamecock fans. So travel safe, and we'll see you in 23 days.
Absolutely. Gary Stokan, again, the CEO and president of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and the AFLAC kickoff game. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the hour here for Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Friday here on The Game.
All right, Chris here for Game Day Men's Health. Hear me talk about them here on the program all the time. They are a local business located conveniently in Northeast Columbia near I-77 and Two Notch Road. And what they do is they help you if you're a guy struggling with certain symptoms like weight gain, muscle loss, if you find yourself tired, fatigued, if you just don't feel right, go get checked out at Game Day Men's Health. They, of course, specialize in men's health. 803-265-3161. They'll check you out, have in-house labs to draw your blood, check you out, give you in-house results, convenient man cave style clinics. They're going to give you your results and a consultation. And if you need a personalized treatment plan, they will help you out with that. They specialize in testosterone replacement therapy that can help boost your energy and strength and get rid of those symptoms that you may be having. Check them out, 803-265-3161 or GameDayMen'sHealth.com.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler and Chris wrapping up your Friday edition of the show. Halftime show of myself and Jack Felcher coming up next as we'll continue on your Friday here on the game. Real quick, reminder once again, 2 weeks from today, the Game Summer Golf Classic on August 22nd at Chartwood in West Columbia. Tee times at 9, registration at 7:30. Onion sausage for breakfast. Saki's Wine and Spirits, Host and Mimosa Bar, and Firehouse Subs for lunch. I mean, in addition to the golf, you can't miss this, right? Gonna have prizes. The golf gun's gonna make a return. We hope to see you out there. If you want to sign up, it's $400 for a team. Call 803-755-2000 and press the number 2 to sign up for the Game's Summer Golf Classic. Again, appreciate Gary Stoken there joining us. I know he's very busy right now with about 3 weeks to go until this game. Again, I will say I'm always pro home and home. But as he laid out there, I understand why these neutral site games happen. Obviously, what they're doing for children's cancer there with the Athletic Cancer Center is phenomenal. So it begs the question in my mind, if you had to pick a venue and an opponent for a neutral site game for South Carolina at any point in the future, what opponent you're picking and where you having them play at?
Well, I'll tell you where I don't want to play at is Ireland.
Okay, you don't want to go overseas?
Nah.
And again, I give the SEC credit that they are not exploring international play, and I hope they never do.
I didn't say never go overseas.
Never, okay.
I do want to go to Ireland.
Okay, just not for a game?
Yeah, I'm not keen to go. I don't even, when they had the, aren't they moving the Bahamas Bowl?
They move it like every year, don't they?
Yeah, it's like not in the Bahamas or something.
They had it in Charlotte 2 years ago. Yeah. Same thing.
But I wouldn't even want to go to the Bahamas for a football game. When I go to the Bahamas, I actually don't want to think about football, believe it or not.
That's a vacation spot.
That's a vacation spot. Some people are like, I love football.
Though I hear that most of the people that go to the game don't know what they're watching. Have you ever read the Reddit thread on the locals in the Bahamas watching the Bahamas Bowl? It's pretty phenomenal.
Like, is this like a soccer game?
Yeah, they're all confused. They're having a good time, but they don't know what the heck they're watching.
Wow. I mean, you kind of, in some ways, caught me a little off guard, Tyler.
What I do here. Got to go spur of the moment.
I know. I think one of the teams that I wanted South Carolina to play again at one point was Notre Dame, which they did in the bowl game.
Yep.
So you kind of like having that recent, I think you cross that one off. South Carolina's going to be playing Miami soon. Not neutral site, but they have the home and home agreement with them.
Sure.
Another one I would have picked. Like, seriously, 2 others I would have picked. Virginia Tech, neutral site game, then a home and homecoming. Appalachian State is one I've wanted to see for a while. They got that coming down the pipe.
Yep.
So it's like a lot of these are getting kind of crossed off the list. Even like Texas coming into the league, not this year, but next year, presumably they'll play them. I mean, I'd like to see a South Carolina Ohio State again.
Yeah. Throw back to the
20-something years.
The Outback Bowls.
Yes.
Shout out to Ryan Brewer.
Big shout out to Ryan Brewer. Did some big things. I think a South Carolina Southern Cal might be cool.
Battle for the real USC.
A South Carolina Oregon. Like, pick a big name brand school. You know, now on one hand, South Carolina has to play Clemson every year.
Yep.
They have to play such a tough schedule that you're hesitant to put. I'm almost putting these in just like not counting the schedule.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a South Carolina fan, you don't want to. Let's play Oregon. Bring it on.
We're looking at this moment independent of everything else that would happen that year.
That's right. As to where to play at neutral site, what are your thoughts? Let me think about it a little more.
So we have the standard, you know, Atlanta, Charlotte. They used to do the Cowboy Classic in Jerry World. They do the Camping World one in Orlando.
Yep.
They also do Lambeau Field as well. I think, and Oregon was top of my list. Oregon, South Carolina game at Lambeau Field. Now, again, that's not close to either fan base, but people would travel for that to say, hey, I watched a football game in Lambeau Field. Yeah, it might be in September when it's 90 degrees, but still, Lambeau's Lambeau. Like, if we're going to do this, let's go somewhere cool and special and unique to all of football.
I also think it would be cool as if they somehow could slot. You can't really slot it late in the year, probably not, but if you could, just go play a snow game.
Yeah. Well, that's the things everybody says. Like, if I'm going to Lambeau, I want to freeze my butt off, and there better be a foot of snow on the ground to get the real experience.
So you picked Oregon, too.
I picked Oregon, and I looked up. They've never played each other, ever, in football.
Yeah. That would be cool. You've got some staff ties, actually, like Darren Usher, the director of recruiting, player personnel, came from Oregon. So did Brian Bachman, who's assisting him. He just came from Oregon. So Chris Hampton, who played here at South Carolina, is on their staff, on their defensive staff.
The whole Jordan Birch thing that, you know, rubs people the wrong way a little bit.
I do think Jerry World would be cool.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to say, oh, let's go play in California. You know, it's like, okay.
Sure.
Like Atlanta, Charlotte, those are close. Lambeau is not.
It's not.
Dallas is not.
People would go.
Dallas is an easy flight. You can take a direct flight from Columbia.
It is.
Or from Charlotte, Atlanta, whatever. Pretty relatively easy to get to. I've taken that flight a few times.
Sure.
But yeah, Lambeau would be.
That'd be cool.
That would be really cool.
I think there's a game at Lambeau this year too, if I'm remembering correctly. I forget who it's between, but like Wisconsin and LSU played there a couple years ago.
Yep.
Alabama, did Alabama play Wisconsin play there? They may have, but yeah, they pepper that in occasionally. Which
so Oregon's a big.
Oregon's
we're on
a big
the same
one.
page.
Because again,
that would be a cool one.
Clear across the country, team you've never seen before. Yeah, they're one of the powers of college football right now. You can't forget about that. But yeah, I just think the dynamic of the matchup, the crazy uniforms, all that kind of stuff at Lambeau, that'd be neat.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
But again, I'm always pro home and home. Always pro home and home.
That's the ideal.
Yeah.
That's the ideal.
Ideal.
Like to go see a game at Oregon Stadium.
That'd be cool. Autzen, crazy place.
Yeah.
Well, maybe our dreams will come reality one day. We'll see. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show with myself and Jack Beltry up next here on the game.
All right, everyone, as we close out the program here on a Friday, hope everybody has a great weekend. And as you go through your weekend, remember our friends over at Integrated Media as we get close.